Chapter 46-35. Eternal Devil's true devil world was destroyed, but this didn't affect him too much. One must know that at his cultivation level, he could casually split the heavens and earth. And Jiyu Fei's yin-yang Grand Dao was no small matter. In terms of defense, it was definitely the strongest defensive Grand Dao in the world. The yin-yang diagram revolved and could block any attack. Jiyu Fei had gone through 9 levels of heavenly tribulations. Each level was a Grand Dao, and this yin-yang Grand Dao was one of them. He was the supreme of the 9 paths in the myriad of worlds. He could also become a supreme of the 9 paths. After Eternal Devil's true devil world was destroyed, Jiyu Fei's eternal heavenly tribulation descended once more. Rumble, a terrifying might of heaven and earth came crashing down from the unseen world. Even Eternal Devil's expression changed. This fellow's eternal heavenly tribulation was truly terrifying. If one world can't trap you, then I'll make 10. Eternal Devil roared in rage. His eyes were filled with demonic flames that surged tens of miles away. As the Eternal Demon said that, he pulled the space before him to the sides, causing it to shatter. Next, a world filled with demonic energy appeared. This world instantly expanded infinitely and directly enveloped Jiyu Fei. Eternal Devil continued to attack. In an instant, he opened up 10 true devil worlds. Kill. Eternal Devil controlled the 10 true devil worlds to obliterate Jiyu Fei. The demonic aura surged and the baleful aura soared into the sky, causing the sky to darken and the earth to darken. Faintly, one could see many terrifying demonic shadows appearing in the 10-direction true devil world. The true devil worlds were terrifying. Evil winds blew and demonic clouds covered the sky. Thunder rumbled and there were even layers of heaven-burning demonic flames surging in the sky. It was indescribably evil and terrifying. Within the true devil worlds, evil chi filled the air. Demonic clouds rumbled violently as though they were about to crush the earth. Baleful chi filled every corner of the world. Mournful demonic howls rang out from the true devil worlds. It was as though countless devils were howling in Jiyu Fei's ears, causing his scalp to go numb. Rumble, accompanied by the sounds of demonic thunder, the dark sky seemed to have been torn apart. Rays of blood-colored light appeared. The eternal great demon stepped on the 10-direction true demon world. The dark ground, which seemed to be soaked in blood, was shaking violently. Then, under the control of the eternal great demon, the power of the 10 true demons world gathered together, and the ground of every great world beneath his feet began to crumble. The power of the 10 directions true devil world evolved into a pitch-black devil well that spewed surging devil chi. The well swallowed Jiyu Fei whole. This was an extremely evil devil well that gathered the power of the 10 directions true devil world. Even if an ordinary Eternal Realm expert was sucked into this devil well, he or she would definitely end up dead. A demonic power that made everyone's heart palpitate erupted from the well. That power, that aura, even surpassed that of the eternal great demon. A terrifying demonic nature enveloped the entire 10 directions true demon world. When Jiyu Fei sensed this demonic nature, his magic power surged and he found it hard to control it. His mind started to feel irritated, as though the evilness in his heart was being lured out by this demonic nature. Crazy thoughts that he didn't dare to think or do in the past started to surface in his heart. Jiyu Fei sneered. This method of the other party couldn't affect him at all. In the next moment, other than the yin-yang Great Dao, the other 8 Great Dao powers erupted from Jiyu Fei's body as well. Each of the Great Dao had been cultivated to the extreme. The moment the 9 Great Dao powers erupted from Jiyu Fei's body, the terrifying demonic nature that enveloped Jiyu Fei was blocked by the 9 Great Dao powers. When the eternal great demon saw this, he was completely dumbfounded. This little guy was truly a monster. He had actually cultivated each of the 9 Great Dao powers to the extreme. Was this the legendary 9 Extreme Supremes? The eternal great demon had a bad feeling. Kill. The eternal great demon channeled the power of the 10 directions true demon world like a madman as an endless amount of power surged towards the devil's well. Very soon, an extremely formidable power ripple burst forth from the devil's well. Within the entire devil's well, there were countless devil marks weaving together. Even though he was trapped within the Devil's Well, Ji Yufei was still as composed as ever. He wasn't bothered about this eternal great demon at all. The 9 great Tao powers interweaved together and clashed against one another. The power that burst forth actually managed to stop the 10 Directions True Demon World from advancing any further. 9 extreme heavens split. Ji Yufei roared out. In the next moment, the power of the 9 great Tao powers fused together. With that, an extremely violent power burst forth, causing the entire void to be destroyed. When the eternal great demon saw this, he could not help but be startled. With Ji Yufei as the center, the power of the 9 extreme heavens gushed out in all directions, causing the entire Devil's Well to tremble as countless runes interweaved together. When the eternal great demon saw this scene, he was even more shocked. Ji Yufei's 9 extreme heavens powers was simply too powerful. It directly caused the first true demon world to explode. As for the other true demon world, countless cracks also appeared on it, as though it could collapse at any moment. Boom! With a loud bang, the second true demon world also collapsed. Endless true demon powers burst forth and gathered towards that withered well. Then, the third true demon world, the fourth true demon world, and so on. One after another, the true demon world collapsed. This was the heaven and earth annihilation. The destructive power that erupted from each true demon world was unimaginably powerful. The eternal great demon wanted to make use of the terrifying power released by the heaven and earth annihilation to kill Ji Yufei. Unfortunately, wanting to kill Ji Yufei like this was simply a fool's dream. The eternal great demon's 10 Directions True Demon World was actually forcefully destroyed by the 9 extreme heavens powers that erupted from Ji Yufei's body. This caused the eternal great demon to be extremely shocked. 9 extreme heavens combine, kill. Ji Yufei used all his strength to activate the 9 extreme heavens powers. The 9 powers were fusing and transforming. Boom! The 9 extreme heavens combined succeeded. Even within the primal chaos world, the entire primal chaos chi started to boil. Without any suspense, the eternal true demon was sent flying. A bloody hole appeared on his chest. His entire body was sent flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, and his fleshly body almost shattered. Preposterous. The eternal great demon was truly depressed to the extreme. He couldn't even win against a fellow who hadn't even crossed his tribulation. Hey, I can't even kill you like this. Ji Yufei was a little surprised. He was very clear about how terrifying his 9 extreme heavens combine was. Ordinary eternal realm existences weren't a match for a 9 extreme heavens warrior. This time, the eternal great demon couldn't help but be shocked. Chapter 46-36. With the 9 extremities combined, he was invincible. The power of this battle technique that Ji Yufei had created in the eternal realm was simply too frightening. Even an eternal demon had been destroyed by a single punch. Not even his primordial spirit had been able to escape. When an eternal paragon died, heaven and earth sensed it. This seemingly broken world actually began to rain heavily. Thunder rumbled through the 9 heavens, and bolts of lightning larger than mountains appeared in the sky. Undergoing tribulation in this desolate world was definitely not Ji Yufei's choice. He took out the all-sky wheel and used it to return to the primogenitor's realm. Ji Yufei sat cross-legged in the sky above the ancestral realm. He sensed a torrential aura of the great Tao descend from the sky. Without hesitation, he undid the seal on his body, and the aura of an eternal realm erupted from his body. Rumble, an incomparably shocking sound of thunder came from the sky. Then, tribulation clouds appeared in the sky one after another. A terrifying destructive aura spread in all directions. Someone's undergoing tribulation, the old-timers in the ancestral realm exclaimed. Too strong. The old-timers in the ancestral realm were all shocked beyond belief. No one dared to attack Ji Yufei again. Rumble, soon, endless tribulation lightning descended from the sky, drowning Ji Yufei. The terrifying aura of destruction swept out in all directions. All of the powerful beings in the ancestral realm looked up into the sky, shocked to the extreme. On this day, countless old-timers in seclusion leaped out, alarmed by the eternal heavenly tribulation. It's him. Someone sensed Ji Yufei's aura. However, Ji Yufei had many enemies in the ancestral realm, especially the ancestral demons. The Li clan of the southern domain, the Celestials, and the Chu clan all had great enmity with Ji Yufei. However, none of them dared to offend Ji Yufei again. If they offended this peerless killer again, they might really be exterminated by him. This little guy, in an unknown city in the ancestral realm, a middle-aged man who was buying sesame seed cake suddenly looked up. His gaze seemed to pass through the endless void and land on Ji Yufei. In a city in the central region of the ancestral realm, a middle-aged man who was helping people read fortunes by the side of the street suddenly stood up and packed up his stall. He took a step forward and instantly arrived near Ji Yufei. He's actually still alive. The primogenitor, the first devil, died for nothing. The fortune teller looked at Ji Yufei, who was bathed in tribulation lightning, and suddenly sighed. At this moment, a middle-aged man rushed over with a butcher knife in hand. This little guy is awesome. The middle-aged butcher gave Ji Yufei, who was in the middle of the tribulation lightning, a thumbs up. None of them could have imagined that the first devil of the primogenitor had used his life to open the cycle of reincarnation and force him into the cycle of reincarnation. Not only had he not died, but he had returned to the primogenitor's realm and was undergoing his eternal tribulation. Why isn't the bastard who bought the sesame seed cake here yet? The pork guy said impatiently. He's coming, he's coming. He's carrying a load and can't walk fast. Sorry. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the horizon. The fortune teller and pork guy looked in the direction of the voice and saw the sesame seed cake guy carrying his sesame seed cake pole, walking over at a steady pace. Hurry up and stabilize the surroundings. Otherwise, if this little guy's eternal tribulation fully erupts, all living beings within a radius of billions of miles will suffer. After saying that, the fortune teller threw the banner in his hand. The fortune-telling banner flew out and pierced the void in the north, stabilizing that part of the void. The pork guy didn't hesitate and threw the butcher knife in his hand as well. The slightly rusty butcher knife shot into the sky and hovered in the east. The eternal power that erupted from the butcher knife froze the void. Sigh. This little guy really knows how to cause trouble, the sesame seed cake guy said, putting down the sesame seed cake and throwing the pole in his hand. The seemingly ordinary pole shot towards the south, stabilizing the void there. The three eternal Tao treasures froze the void around Ji Yufei in a triangular formation, preventing the power of the eternal tribulation from erupting and destroying the area. This little guy has quite the ability to stir up trouble. The pork guy pursed his lips. I had thought that I would never be able to return. To think that this little guy is still alive. The fortune teller stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Return? Are you sure?" The sesame seed cake guy looked at the fortune teller. "Don't you want to return?" The fortune teller asked. "I want to. I want to die. I want to see my child. My child's talent is definitely not inferior to this little guy's. So many years have passed. My child must have cultivated to the eternal stratum by now." The sesame seed cake guy sighed, a pained expression on his face. Be it the eternal paragons or the others, they all had some thoughts and concerns. The fortune teller, the pork guy, and the sesame seed cake guy were all the same. "Return. I want to kill everyone," the pork guy roared domineeringly. These three guys all had their own stories, and they all wanted to return. However, countless years had passed, and they simply could not find the way back. The reappearance of Ji Yufei gave them hope. Rumble, at this moment, Ji Yufei was sitting cross-legged in the void, enduring the baptism of the endless tribulation lightning. His expression was indifferent. The terrifying tribulation lightning that could kill an extreme supremacy was like scratching an itch when it landed on his body. He was even refining the power of the tribulation lightning for his own use. Yin-yang tribulation lightning, heavenly fire tribulation lightning, 9 firmaments God annihilating tribulation lightning, all kinds of tribulation lightning that were rarely seen appeared and blasted Ji Yufei's body. Not difficult at all. Ji Yufei was very bored. Yes, he was really bored. After his cultivation broke through to the eternal stratum, he was surprised to find that his eternal martial body had transformed much more thoroughly than the last time. This might be the result of recultivation. When he reached the top again, he would find that the scenery above the top had become even more beautiful. If the three guys outside knew that Jiu Fei was being struck by lightning in a very boring manner, they would definitely spit out their food. Others had a slim chance of surviving the tribulation, but he was very bored. He was bombarded by the eternal tribulation thunder for 3 days and 3 nights. Only then did the eternal tribulation thunder gradually recede. Then, one after another, imprints of the great path descended from the sky and turned into powerful figures that charged at him. This trick again. I say, great path boss, can't you come up with something new? Jiu Fei was speechless. Tribulation transcendence was always this routine. He was tired of it. He directly released the eternal divine light to protect himself and continued to sit cross-legged in the void, letting the figures formed by the great path imprints attack him. He was too lazy to make a move. The incarnations of the great path imprints attacked Jiu Fei in a frenzy. However, these incarnations of the great path imprints could not even break through Jiu Fei's eternal divine light and were all blocked outside. Jiu Fei was attacked by these peerless figures formed by the great path imprints for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, these peerless figures also returned to the great path. The great path seemed to be impatient and actually made a move personally. A terrible destructive aura spread in all directions, and a terrifying hand of the great path directly grabbed at Jiu Fei. It's starting to get a little interesting. Jiu Fei stood up and stood with his hands behind his back, looking indifferently at the huge hand that descended from the sky. To be precise, it was the hand of the great path of destruction. It could destroy everything, including the eternal sovereign. Chapter 46-37. Bang! Jiu Fei finally made his move. He met the descending Daoist hand with a palm strike. Then, in the next moment, boundless energy waves surged between the heavens and the earth. The two forces collided, forming a terrifying energy storm that swept out in all directions. If it weren't for the 3 eternal level existences suppressing this part of the world, the area within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles would have been smashed to pieces. At this time, Jiu Fei seemed to see his strongest enemy in the past, the first demon progenitor. This, Jiu Fei was shocked. He knew that this was the power of the heavenly tribulation affecting him. The eternal tribulation's power had manifested his strongest enemy. Jiu Fei, do you really think you can kill me? What a joke. The first demon progenitor appeared in front of Jiu Fei with a sinister smile. You're long dead. This is just a mark you left on the Daoist. Jiu Fei knew that the first demon progenitor had used his life to start the cycle of reincarnation. He was dead for sure. He couldn't even cultivate the ghost Dao. The first demon progenitor in front of him was just a mark he left on the Daoist wound. Whoosh! A demonic rune suddenly appeared on the forehead of the first demon progenitor's clone. The mysterious demonic rune fired a demonic ray at Jiu Fei. Die! Without any hesitation, Jiu Fei used his full strength to fight the first demon progenitor's clone. He didn't dare to be careless. Jiu Fei reached out with his right hand and pressed forward. An unfathomable power emanated from his palm. The void in front of his palm trembled violently. A divine light surged out and rushed forward. The demonic light that shot out was annihilated in an endless expanse of divine light. The first demon progenitor's clone sneered. A true demon world appeared around him. This move again. Jiu Fei was speechless. Rumble, in the true devil world, devil stars fell from the sky one after another. The blood-colored devil light illuminated the entire world. In the bloodlight, the entire true devil world was dyed with a layer of demonic blood. The entire world was shaking. Above the sky, many demon marks appeared, like a boundless demon net, enveloping the entire true devil world. Under the blessing of the great Tao, the primogenitor's incarnation had reached an unimaginable level of power. Practically no one in the world could compete with it. Jiu Fei knew that he had originally wanted to peacefully pass the eternal tribulation. However, the bitter battle had already begun. Rumble, the pitch-black demonic hand shrouded the heavens and earth as it headed straight for Jiu Fei. Jiu Fei stood with his hands behind his back. With just a thought, He soared into the sky and charged towards the demon hand that was descending from the sky. Boom! The demon hand, which was powerful enough to injure an eternal level creature, was smashed apart by him. Even the demonic figure in the sky was smashed apart by Gu Fei. Then, the true devil world formed by the first demon progenitor's incarnation collapsed. A great Tao mark soared into the sky and returned to the great Tao. Your main body wasn't my match back then, let alone a mark you left on the great Tao. Gu Fei shook his head helplessly. However, in the next moment, he had no choice but to get serious. One after another, powerful figures walked out from the sky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 36 incarnations? Gu Fei was stunned. The primogenitor's realm actually produced so many eternal level creatures in the past. If the first demon progenitor's incarnation was included, it would be 37 incarnations. 37 eternal level creatures. Just thinking about it made his scalp tingle. If he hadn't come to the primogenitor's realm to undergo the eternal heavenly tribulation, he wouldn't have known that the primogenitor's realm was once so glorious. It actually produced 37 eternal supremes. Wait, why does that incarnation look so familiar? Gu Fei stared at one of the incarnations. Damn it, isn't that me? No wonder it looks so familiar. Great Tao, are you trying to stir up trouble? Even my incarnation has been mobilized. Gu Fei was speechless. When he achieved eternal supremes, he also left a great Tao mark in the primogenitor's realm. This great Tao mark wouldn't disappear just because its original owner died. Aya, this little guy is playing a little too big this time. The pork guy and the others, who were watching from the side, were also dumbfounded. Even they didn't know that there were so many eternal level creatures in this world. The bigger he plays, the higher his achievements will be, the fortune teller sighed. Even when he was undergoing the eternal heavenly tribulation, he didn't compete with the great Tao marks left on the great Tao by dozens of experts. Ordinary eternal heavenly tribulations would attract 3 or 4 great Tao incarnations, which was already very abnormal. But now, Gu Fei had attracted 37 great Tao marks at once. Moreover, one of the great Tao incarnations was his. The show is about to start. The sesame seed cake guy moved a stool over and watched the show while eating melons. Boom. Without any words, the 36 incarnations rushed forward and instantly sent Gu Fei flying. Each of the incarnations formed by the 36 great Tao marks was extremely powerful. It was as if their true bodies were attacking Gu Fei. Again, although Gu Fei was sent flying and coughed up blood, his fighting spirit was still strong. The stronger Gu Fei was, the stronger he became. He fought against the 36 clones. This was definitely the most tragic battle he had encountered in his life. He didn't know how many times his body had been shattered, but he was still reforming his martial body in an instant to fight against the incarnations again. As one incarnation after another was beaten back to the great Tao by Gu Fei, the pressure on Gu Fei began to gradually decrease. He fought against the incarnations until the void was collapsing and the world was boiling. In the end, the other incarnations were beaten back to the great Tao, but his own incarnation was not beaten back to the great Tao. This was formed by the mark he left on the great Tao when he was undergoing the eternal heavenly tribulation. Without any unnecessary words, Gu Fei directly fought against his own incarnation. Soon, there was a flash of blood. Gu Fei's right arm was torn off by his opponent, and his left hand instantly pierced through the chest of the incarnation. Bang! Gu Fei's incarnation was directly shattered, and a great Tao mark flew back to the heavenly tribulation. At this time, Gu Fei thought he could take a breather, but in the next moment, the entire great Tao was obliterating him. It was terrifying. Chapter 46-38. Gu Fei's eternal heavenly tribulation was truly terrifying. At the very least, the pork guy and the others who were watching from the outside were terrified. They were afraid that Gu Fei would die if he wasn't careful. However, Gu Fei's tenacity far exceeded their expectations. At this moment, even the Great Tao took action. The Great Tao was an existence that surpassed the ancestral realm. There was no good or evil in it, but Gu Fei's strength threatened the Great Tao. Out of an instinctive reaction to the threat, The great Tao erupted with unprecedented power. Then, tragedy befell Ji Fei. This world isn't simple. The pork guy and the others gained a new understanding of the ancestral realm. At this moment, the Yi family's primogenitor arrived. Yi Qingtian, ancient overlord, demon ancestor Han Tian, and almost all the supremacies of the ancestral realm were here. Powerful figures appeared outside the place where Ji Fei was undergoing his tribulation. No one dared to approach, so they watched from afar. They didn't even notice the pork guy and the others who were standing in the void closest to Ji Fei's tribulation. These annoying bugs. The pork guy looked around and couldn't help but frown. Given their cultivation, even supremacies wouldn't be able to sense their existence if they wanted to. If they wanted to, they could destroy these bugs with a single slap. This was the power and terror of an eternal supremacy. What's going on? I can't sense that little guy's aura anymore. Yes, there's still a faint trace of his spirit. The pork guy, the sesame seed guy, and the fortune teller were all shocked. Ji Fei, who was undergoing his tribulation, had disappeared. However, the heavenly tribulation was still there. Although Ji Fei wasn't dead yet, he was in an extremely dangerous state. He had been severely injured by the great Tao. His martial body had turned to ashes, and his spirit had been severely injured. He was on the verge of death. Rebirth with a thought. Ji Fei's figure reappeared in the world. His spirit was rapidly recovering, and his martial body was also reforming. In an instant, he had returned to his strongest state. The eyes of the pork boss and the others almost fell out of their sockets. This guy was clearly heavily injured, and even his soul had almost been destroyed. There was only an extremely weak sliver of his aura left. But who would have thought that with just a thought, Ji Fei would be reborn? This little guy is awesome, the pork guy exclaimed. Maybe this little guy can really bring us back. The fortune teller nodded. Go back. The sesame seed cake guy was in a daze. They were not natives of ancestral plane. Rather, they were from another world. That world was known as Eternal World. Truth be told, they were exiled from that world. It was definitely not going to be easy to go back. Boom. A loud noise echoed out, and the area where the three eternal paragons had frozen the void began to shake. Then, Ji Fei disappeared again. This time, he disappeared even more thoroughly. Even the presence of his primordial spirit could not be sensed. It was as if his body and soul had truly been destroyed. This time, it took a while for Ji Fei to revive. He had cultivated the supreme Tao ancestors' 9 secrets of immortal Tao. When the 9 secrets were combined, he would be undying and indestructible. This was an undying cultivation method. Ji Fei was destroyed 49 times in a row. Every time he was reborn, his martial body would grow a lot stronger. The 49 times of killing had transformed his martial body to a pitilessly terrifying level. On the 49th attack, Ji Fei suddenly felt as if he had been reborn. His consciousness became incomparably clear. It felt as if his soul had been transformed and sublimated. It was as if he had entered a new world, a brand new world. This was the perfect opening of the martial body's treasury. Roar. Ji Fei threw his head back and roared. The terrifying sound waves spread out, shaking the entire world. Those who had been watching from afar were also affected, and they all retreated even further away. At this time, the terrifying aura in the sky gradually weakened, and finally disappeared. The eternal heavenly tribulation was finally over. Right now, Ji Fei felt as if he was filled with power. He felt as if he could destroy the entire primogenitor realm with just a wave of his hand. Congratulations, fellow Daoist. Pork Dude, Fried Cake Dude, and the fortune teller appeared in front of Ji Fei at the same time. You guys, Ji Fei was shocked. He had already sensed their presence, but he didn't expect them to be dressed like this. Butcher, Fried Cake Dude, and fortune teller. These were the most ordinary people in this world. Every human city had these 3 types of people. Indeed, the great secluded themselves in the city. Ji Fei sighed. Haha, you will soon know who we are. Pork Dude laughed. The fortune teller waved his right hand, and the entire world changed. They appeared in a world that looked like an immortal realm. The spiritual energy here was so vast that they could see it with their naked eyes. This is the eternal heaven, a world created by the three of us. The fortune teller explained. Eternal heaven? Hearing this, Jiu Fei was taken aback. These three fellows were all existences in the eternal realm. Yet, the three of them had actually joined forces to open up such a world. He could sense that this world was actually a perfect world. If he cultivated here, he would be able to reach the extreme Tao realm. They were in a valley, where there were stone tables and benches. Under the flowering trees, there were delicacies, wine, and all kinds of immortal fruits. Come, come, come. Have a look at our skills. Pork Dude said to Jiu Fei. Jiu Fei was stunned. Were these the lofty eternal supremes? These three fellows were too ordinary. The three eternal realm existences set up a banquet to celebrate Jiu Fei's success in transcending the tribulation. Jiu Fei knew that these guys were being so polite for no reason. They must have something they wanted him to do for them. Who cares? I'll eat first. This was a banquet set up by eternal realm existences. The ingredients used were the best, such as golden crow leg, dragon liver and phoenix marrow, roasted chileen claw, dragon turtle egg and many others. The dishes on the table left Jiu Fei dumbfounded. He didn't stand on ceremony and ate a big meal. It was delicious. This was definitely the best meal he had ever eaten. After 3 rounds of wine, the real business came. Brother old Jiu, we have a favor to ask of you. I hope you won't refuse. Pork Dude put down his bowl and said. Just say it. Jiu Fei said heroically. Haha, good. We didn't misjudge you. Pork Dude laughed. It's like this. The pork man began to tell his story. Thus, Jiu Fei found out about their origins. All 3 of them were from Eternal World. Additionally, they were expelled from Eternal World. They wanted Jiu Fei to help them return to Eternal World. Haha, that's easy. Jiu Fei agreed. Easy. Pork Dude and the others exchanged glances. If it was easy, they would not have been trapped in the primogenitor's world for so long. What they did not know was that Jiu Fei's primal chaos immortal mansion contained a portal to Eternal World. If you don't believe me, follow me. Jiu Fei took out the Myriad Worlds wheel. The next moment, he mobilized the Myriad Worlds wheel and they disappeared into the void. Soon, they appeared in the primal chaos immortal mansion. This is the aura of Eternal World. Chapter 4639. Before the cultivators of Eternal World appeared in the myriad celestial planes, neither the cultivators from the primordial world nor the ancestral world knew that there was a supreme world above the primal world. The existence of Eternal World posed a great threat to the myriad celestial planes. There were countless powerful creatures in Eternal World. Should the experts of Eternal World be able to freely enter and exit the myriad celestial planes, the myriad celestial planes would become a hunting ground for the top forces of Eternal World. Although Jiu Fei was unwilling to admit it, he knew all too well what kind of threat the higher worlds posed to the lower worlds. He needed allies. His strength alone was too weak. In the face of the top forces of Eternal World, he was simply not strong enough. The true top forces of Eternal World were not existences that the eternal godly dynasty could hope to match. Even the primogenitor of the eternal godly dynasty was only at the starter-level eternal stage. Thanks to his eternal grade Tao artifact, Jiu Fei was able to fight the primogenitor to the death and chase him back to Eternal World. There was no need for him to fear the primogenitor of the eternal godly dynasty. He was also at the starter-level eternal stage. If the primogenitor of the eternal godly dynasty were to come again, he was confident that he could beat him up. At that moment, 4 figures were standing atop a mountain within the Chaos Immortal Mansion. You fellows want to return to Eternal World? For me, that is too easy. Jiu Fei smiled as he looked at the 3 eternal autarchs. This, Pork Bro and the others exchanged glances, dumbfounded. What was going on? Did those fellows from Eternal World find a way to enter the myriad celestial planes? Naturally, the big shots of Eternal World knew about the existence of the myriad celestial planes. However, They did not understand why the cultivators of Eternal World could not freely enter the myriad celestial planes. Eternal World appeared to be a supreme world that existed independently from the myriad celestial planes. Naturally, the great figures of Eternal World were unwilling to just be the overlords of Eternal World. Thus, they wanted to expand into other worlds. However, it was very difficult for them to descend to other worlds from Eternal World. A careless mistake could result in their deaths. Back then, in order to find a way to enter the myriad celestial planes, the top forces of Eternal World had joined forces and found a way. However, this path was extremely dangerous. Back then, Pork Guy and the others had entered the Primogenitor's realm through this path. They had risked their lives to come to the Primogenitor's world. Then, they discovered that they couldn't go back. Back then, they had been unwilling to become cannon fodder for some people. Fighting for those people was the equivalent of being exiled. Due to that, they hated certain people from Eternal World bitterly. It's the aura of the celestial continent, the Pork Guy suddenly said. Celestial continent. The fortune teller frowned when he heard that. In the past, there were no peak powers in the celestial continent. But now that countless years had passed, no one knew what the current situation was like in the celestial continent. Seniors, do you want to go back immediately, or do you want to stay here for a while? Gu Fei said. There was nothing between the Porkman and the fortune teller. After figuring out the current situation in Eternal World, returning was the safest choice. However, the Xiaobing seller was eager to return. I'll scout for you. The Xiaobing seller didn't want to wait any longer. The Porkman and the fortune teller exchanged glances. After pondering for a moment, they nodded their heads. They had a lot of enemies in Eternal World. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been captured and thrown into the Primogenitor's realm as cannon fodder. The one who captured them back then was a ruthless person who had once ruled over 1/10 of Eternal World's territory. An overlord like him was a terrifying existence. All these years, they had spent an endless amount of effort to break the seal that ruthless person had placed on them. By doing so, they would be able to break free from that ruthless person's control. However, they didn't want to take the risk. The Xiaobing seller handed a jade talisman to Gu Fei. It was a boundary talisman forged from divine undying jade. This boundary talisman could allow one to pass through various boundary walls. With this boundary talisman, one could freely travel through the myriad worlds. This was even more useful than Gu Fei's myriad worlds wheel. Moreover, this boundary talisman could also allow for cross-boundary voice transmission. Only a peerless existence in the eternal stage could create such a heaven-defying item. Gu Fei played with the jade talisman for a moment before carefully putting it away. This is a good item. I'll study it later and see if I can make a large number of copies and give them to others. That way, it will be much more convenient for me to contact others. After that, the Xiaobing seller bade farewell to Gu Fei and the others and left. Not long after, a major event happened in the immortal continent of Eternal World. The eternal godly dynasty's primogenitor had died in his secluded cultivation retreat. In the beginning, the eternal godly dynasty wanted to keep the news under wraps. However, it didn't take long before the news of the eternal godly dynasty's primogenitor's death spread and shook the entire immortal continent. Without the protection of the eternal godly dynasty's primogenitor, the eternal godly dynasty was on the verge of collapse. In the end, the people from the martial extreme immortal sect had to step forward and force back those fellows who wanted to attack the eternal godly dynasty. The martial extreme immortal sect was different from the eternal godly dynasty. It was the top faction in Eternal World. After the Xiaobing seller left, Gu Fei brought the fortune teller and the butcher into his palace that floated above the 9 heavens. The butcher and the fortune teller stayed at Gu Fei's place. By the time Gu Fei returned to the Chaos Immortal Mansion world, the battle for the Great Path Golden Lotuses had come to an end. Most of the Great Path Golden Lotuses had been taken by others. Even the old tortoise had gone into seclusion. Moreover, the old tortoise's place of seclusion was in the first layer of the seal above the 9 heavens. Meanwhile, Yang was in the ancestral prime mountains of the primordial realm, fighting against the heavenly tribulation. Endless tribulation lightning raged above the ancestral prime mountains for 3 days and 3 nights. Endless tribulation lightning rained down, turning the place where Yang was into a barren desert. Yang survived the tribulation lightning. Next, it was the test of the great pathbrand. One blurry figure after another walked down from the sky, each of them bursting with powerful energy waves. A total of 9 figures walked down from the sky. Boom! The aura bursting from the 9 figures was extremely violent, forming a kind of energy tide that swept in all directions. Come on! Yang fighting spirit was like a rainbow. She knew that this would be the most dangerous wave of the heavenly tribulation. If she could survive it, she would become the youngest extreme grade supremacy in the entire universe. A great battle broke out. Yang was not afraid at all. Soon, she was injured. The situation did not look good. Chapter 4640. The Ancestral Origin Mountains of the Primordial World. This was where the Earth's ancestral vein was located. The power of the laws of the world was the strongest here. Yang had chosen to undergo her tribulation here because the laws of the world were the strongest here. Only then could she become the strongest extreme grade sovereign. At this time, Yang faced the last wave of the heavenly tribulation. This was the seal of the 9 experts above the heavenly way being triggered. The incarnations of the 9 strongest extreme way supremes in the history of the primordial world appeared in the world. At that moment, all living beings in the ancestral origin mountains were extremely terrified. Who's undergoing the tribulation? Powerful figures appeared one after another outside the ancestral origin mountains. Yang tribulation had caused too much of a commotion, so much so that all the extreme grade sovereigns in the primordial world were alarmed. Some descended with their consciousnesses, while others even arrived in person. In the distant sky, a resplendent divine hall hovered there. Within the endless golden light, one could vaguely see the figure of a golden crow. The master of the gold divine hall that hasn't appeared for 10,000 years is here too? Someone exclaimed. The gold divine hall was renowned in the primordial world. It was the sacred hall of the Golden Crows. The Golden Crows were a powerful race that had a supreme great ancestor. The master of the Gold Divine Hall was the supreme great ancestor of the Golden Crows. In another direction, a black mountain with a monstrous black aura floated in the sky. An extremely terrifying cold aura spread out from the black mountain, and the surrounding void seemed to solidify. That's the divine mountain of the moon, someone exclaimed. The divine mountain of the moon divine race was the sacred mountain of the moon divine race. The moon divine race was said to have existed since the beginning of the world. They were one of the most ancient races in the primordial world. There were also a few ancient antiques that had been famous for countless years outside the ancestral origin mountains. Even the imperial lord of the Pingtian divine dynasty had come. With 9 dragons pulling a carriage, the imperial lords might shook the world. The ancestors of the Heavens Equal Sect, Wuji Palace, Chaotic War God Hall, Blood Prison Demon Palace, and Taiyu Sacred Land had come as well. These great sects and sects had suffered heavy losses in the chaotic immortal mansion world. Back then, countless divine sons and saintesses had died. Even these superforces had suffered great losses. Who is that guy? Everyone was curious as to who was going through the tribulation. The extreme Tao heavenly tribulation had a great impact on the heavenly Tao. Even in the primal beginning realm, with its incomparably powerful heavenly Tao, it would take a very long time to recover. As for the primordial beginning realm, it had been nearly 30,000 years since anyone had become an extreme grade paragon. The extreme Tao heavenly tribulation seemed to have become a legend in the grand beginning realm. However, today, the extreme path heavenly tribulation had reappeared, and someone was actually undergoing the tribulation in the ancestral origin mountains. The ancestral origin mountain range was not an ordinary place. Those who chose to undergo the heavenly tribulation here were all monstrous geniuses who possessed great willpower and wisdom and had extremely firm Tao hearts. Furthermore, the ancestral origin mountain range was the only place in the entire primal beginning realm that could produce the strongest extreme grade exalts. Humph. Achieving the strongest extreme Tao is easier said than done. The sect master of heaven equal sect stared at the tribulation clouds above the ancestral Yuan mountain range and sneered. How do you know the person inside won't succeed? A figure shrouded in chaotic aura said disapprovingly. Since ancient times, only Great Emperor Zhu Yuan has succeeded in undergoing the heavenly tribulation in the ancestral Yuan mountain range and became a supreme great emperor among the extreme grade paragons. Do you think the person inside is even more amazing than Great Emperor Zhu Yuan? The sect master of heaven equal sect sneered. Everything is possible. I believe we will know the result soon. An old voice rang out. A senile old man holding a walking stick walked over from the distance step by step. The sect master of heaven equal sect and the middle-aged man shrouded in chaotic aura were very respectful when they saw the old man. Greetings, Great Emperor. The sect master of heaven equal sect and the middle-aged man in black hurriedly bowed to the old man. The old man was actually Great Emperor Zhu Yuan. Great Emperor Zhu Yuan was the strongest existence in the primal beginning realm. All the extreme grade paragons were juniors in front of him because his cultivation was the strongest. Although Great Emperor Zhu Yuan was still alive, he had long stopped caring about worldly affairs. He had never accepted a disciple and was a loner. However, no one dared to look down on him. After all, he was an invincible great emperor. Who would dare to provoke a great emperor? The surrounding extreme grade paragons hurriedly rushed over and bowed to Great Emperor Zhu Yuan. No one dared to be negligent. Although Great Emperor Zhu Yuan looked like he had one foot in the grave, his cultivation was extremely terrifying. In his eyes, extreme grade paragons were just living beings that were slightly stronger than ants. I didn't expect such a rising star to appear in the primal beginning realm. Great Emperor Zhu Yuan said calmly. However, he never expected that Yang was not from the primal beginning realm. At this time, Yang was fighting against the 9 clones. Powerful energy ripples spread out, causing even the void to tremble. Transparent ripples that were visible to the naked eye appeared one after another. Bam! Yang shoulder was punched by one of the clones. In the next moment, her entire shoulder exploded and she was sent flying. However, Yang injury was healed in just a breath or two. At Yang realm, it was not difficult to be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, when the 9 clones attacked at the same time, even Yang found it difficult to resist. Her body was constantly being blasted apart and reconstructed. Under the baptism of the power of the heavenly tribulation, her flesh and soul gradually transformed towards the extreme grade paragons. At the place where Yang was undergoing her tribulation, a divine sword floated in the void. It was an inconspicuous sword, but it had become Yang trump card at this moment. While Yang was undergoing her tribulation, Jiyu Ling was also undergoing her tribulation. She had chosen the primal beginning realm, so Jiyu Fei had sent Di Jotian to protect her. Di Jotian was at the quasi-eternal realm. With him around, even Yi Qingtian would not dare to touch Jiyu Ling. Anyone who obtained the Great Path Golden Lotus in the primal chaos immortal mansion world would choose to go into seclusion. It should be known that the Great Path Golden Lotus could only exist for 49 days. If the time was up and the Great Path Golden Lotus had not been refined, then nothing would be obtained. As for Jiyu Fei, he was accompanying the butcher and the fortune teller, the 2 eternal paragons. He was constantly asking the 2 eternal paragons for advice on cultivation. He was a newbie, but these 2 eternal paragons had lived for countless years. They were veteran eternal paragons. The 2 of them did not try to hide anything. To be able to form a good relationship with Jiyu Fei was something they could not ask for more. They had long since realized that Jiyu Fei was someone with great luck. Under the guidance of the 2 veteran eternal paragons, Jiyu Fei's cultivation base advanced by leaps and bounds. It was then that the eternal paragon who had entered Eternal World to buy the sesame seed cake finally sent them a message. Chapter 46-41. For Jiyu Fei, Eternal World was also a mysterious world. Before finding out about Eternal World, he had assumed that the primogenitor realm was the most perfect world. After all, the primogenitor realm was a primal world. It was the myriad celestial worlds born from the primogenitor realm. The myriad celestial worlds was a collective term. Perhaps it could be described as a great thousand worlds. The primogenitor realm was the origin. From the primogenitor realm came a great thousand worlds. The primogenitor realm was also the primogenitor realm. From the primogenitor realm, another great thousand worlds could be born. That was the truth. The primogenitor realm was the origin of the great thousand worlds. Gu Fei knew that there were definitely more than 2 primogenitor realms in the world. And now, however, a world of a higher level than the primogenitor realm had appeared. Eternal world. Surprisingly, there were many eternal level life forms in eternal world. Seeing that shocked Gu Fei. Since ancient times, the number of eternal level life forms born in a world like the primogenitor realm could be counted on one's fingers. And yet, there were so many eternal level life forms in eternal world. For Gu Fei, this was simply unimaginable. It was then that the eternal autarch who had left to enter eternal world finally used a dimensional talisman to send a message back. Seeing that, Gu Fei and the others grew excited. The information that the eternal autarch sent back was quite a bit. However, after reading the information from the dimensional talisman, Gu Fei finally gained a certain understanding of eternal world. This so-called eternal world turned out to be a boundless world. There was no end to this world. Not even eternal level life forms could reach the end of this world. Not even eternal level life forms could reach the end of this world. That was terrifying. Eternal level life forms were peerless existences. They could kill off extreme Tao Supremes like they were killing chickens. An eternal level life form entering the primogenitor realm was enough to sweep through the entire world. An infinitely big world. Interesting. In the future, this will be my stage. Gu Fei became somewhat excited. Such a grand stage was more suitable for him. The present primogenitor realm and primogenitor realm were too small for him. The primordial world and primogenitor world were just small ponds while eternal world was an endless ocean. It was no wonder those divine sons and divine daughters from eternal world simply did not care about the living creatures from the 4 great worlds. They were used to being at the top. How could the living creatures from a small pond in a small place like this be worthy of their attention? However, the creatures of eternal world could never have imagined that a WM could be born from a small pond. Moreover, a monstrous character like Gu Fei had appeared. At this moment, 3 people were seated in a temple high above the 9 heavens of the world of the primal chaos immortal estate. Damn it! That madman killed that kid from the eternal divine dynasty in such a short time. Isn't he afraid of attracting the attention of those old farts? The butcher roared angrily. Low profile? F*ck, I've been low profile for countless years. It wasn't without reason that he chose to become a butcher. He feared that the cultivators from eternal world would enter the primogenitor plane again to kill him. He had been butchering pigs for countless years. Now, the sight of a pig made him want to vomit. He had not butchered pigs for many years, but he could not change his habit. His pig slaughtering knife, in particular, had been refined into an eternal level pig slaughtering knife through painstaking efforts. So what if he's killed? The fortune teller said disapprovingly. The immortal continent is in chaos now. We can take this opportunity to return. The fortune teller said after some thought. You mean, this is an opportunity? The butcher's eyes lit up. It's time to return. The fortune teller said indifferently. The butcher nodded, then turned to look at Gu Fei. Little brother, do you want to return with us? Gu Fei was very tempted, but he could not do so now. He still had many things to deal with. Be it the human world, the primogenitor plane or the other worlds, he had to settle all of them before he could leave. After all, once he left, there was no telling when he would be able to return. Very well, then. When you arrive at the eternal world, use the dimensional talisman to contact us. The butcher said to Gu Fei. Next, he and the fortune teller bid farewell to Gu Fei. Truth be told, they were also anxious to return. Since they had received the news from the Xiaobing seller, how could they just sit around? All right. Have a safe trip. Gu Fei did not say anything else. He personally brought the 2 of them to a teleportation array. The 2 eternal existences stepped into the teleportation array, leaving the Chaos Immortal Mansion world and returning to Eternal World. With the return of these two ferocious characters, a storm of blood would surely rise within Eternal World. Who knows how many living beings would suffer from it? Naturally, that was not something that Ji Yufei could imagine. After sending the two of them off, Ji Yufei's thought enveloped the entire Chaos Immortal Mansion world. Everything within the Chaos Immortal Mansion world appeared within his mind. That Tong Yu is truly a monster. Through his senses, he could sense that the entire primal Chaos Immortal Mansion world was filled with traps. That freak Tong Yu had actually transformed the entire world into a world of traps. Tong Yu's objective was very simple. He wanted to harvest lives. As long as it was a life form that made its way into the Chaos Immortal Mansion world, he wanted to harvest them all. Naturally, Tong Yu was now in a tragic state. He had been subdued by Ji Yufei and became Ji Yufei's subordinate. Suddenly, Ji Yufei noticed that almost all of the divine sons and holy daughters from Eternal World had disappeared from the Chaos Immortal Mansion world. The cultivators from Eternal World had all retreated. Ji Yufei could not be bothered with them. He could sense that there were still a considerable number of Grand Dao Golden Lotuses within the Chaos Immortal Mansion world that had yet to be obtained. Those Grand Dao Golden Lotuses had all fallen into danger zones. Those places were all traps that Tong Yu had set up. Anyone who entered would die. In those danger zones, there were mountains of corpses. In order to obtain the Grand Dao Golden Lotuses, who knew how many people had died in Tong Yu's traps? Ji Yufei shook his head. This was the price of becoming an extreme grade paragon. Ji Yufei pondered for a moment. Then, he used a great divine ability to reconstruct this world. Rumble, the entire Chaos Immortal Mansion world shook. Beams of divine light shot out from every corner of the world. The earth quaked, the mountains shook, and the lakes and seas churned. Earth veins swam across the earth like great dragons. The terrain of the entire Chaos Immortal Mansion world was changing. The traps that Tong Yu had spent a great deal of effort to set up were all reduced to ashes. All the living beings in this world were stunned by this earth-shattering scene. At that moment, the Grand Dao Golden Lotuses that had fallen into the danger zones flew up again. They radiated with endless golden light, like little divine suns that adorned the void. Everyone was stunned. In the next moment, everyone rushed towards the Grand Dao Golden Lotuses as if they had gone mad. Zi Yunxiao and his sister soared into the sky and snatched away two Grand Dao Golden Lotuses that had flown out of the collapsed danger zones. They were quite lucky to be in the vicinity of this danger zone. Yuan Hong, Ji Yu Zhong, Ji Yu Xiaofeng, Qin Huang, the Golden Goddess, and Azure Dragon, who had returned to the Chaos Immortal Mansion world, all managed to snatch a Grand Dao Golden Lotus. The people of Eternal World had retreated. The people of the Primordial Beginning Realm had also retreated. Only the people of the human world and the heavenly realm were still holding on. Then, those who had held on until the end were finally lucky. Chapter 46-42. The Golden Lotuses of the Great Tao could only exist for 49 days. When the time was up, they would dissipate and return to the world. Those who obtained the Golden Lotuses of the Great Tao would immediately leave. They wanted to find a place to refine the Golden Lotuses of the Great Tao, break through the shackles of cultivation, and become an extreme Tao paragon. At this time, Ji Yufei continued to transform the world and reconstruct it. The entire primal Chaos Immortal Mansion had undergone a complete transformation. In the center of the world, a giant mountain had appeared. This mountain was the ancestral vein of the entire primal Chaos Immortal Mansion world. The pitilessly dangerous land had become a treasure land where spiritual energy gathered, and the terrifying land had become a picturesque paradise. All of this had happened with just a thought from Ji Yufei. He was the ruler of this world. The feeling of controlling the entire world and being omnipotent left him somewhat obsessed. This was supreme power. The heavenly Tao of this primal Chaos Immortal Mansion world wasn't very complete. Ji Yufei could only use his own Grand Tao nomological laws to repair the heavenly Tao. Too many people had died in this trial. Gu Fei was using the great path laws that had yet to dissipate from the bodies of those who had died here to repair the heavenly Tao. Countless powerful beings had fallen in the primal chaos immortal mansion world, but in the end, they had become nourishment for this world. It had to be known that even extreme Tao paragons had fallen here. Gu Fei didn't want to perfect the heavenly Tao of this primal chaos immortal mansion world to the terrifying extent of the human realm. However, under his repair, this primal chaos immortal mansion world could also give birth to extreme Tao paragons. At this time, Gu Fei discovered that there were still some golden lotuses of the great Tao that hadn't been taken. He waved his sleeves and collected the golden lotuses of the great Tao. After a day and a night, the transformation of the entire primal chaos immortal mansion world was complete. The spiritual energy of the world had become much denser, and in some places, the spiritual energy had gathered to form spiritual lands and treasure lands. As the manager of this world, Tong Yu had built a palace at the peak of the world's #1 divine mountain and lived there. With Gu Fei's current eternal realm cultivation, he could split open heaven and earth with a single thought. However, the primal chaos immortal mansion world was still a high-level world, and it took him a day to repair it. After doing all of this, he left the primal chaos immortal abode and entered the ancestral world. At this time, Jiyu Ling was undergoing tribulation in the eastern domain of the ancestral realm. Even with Di Jotian's protection, there were still people who dared to sneak up on Jiyu Ling. Rumble, Ancient Spirit's extreme Tao heavenly tribulation was also freakishly fierce. After all, the southern domain was the place where Gu Fei had reached the extreme Tao, and the heavenly Tao here was branded with his mark. In fact, Gu Fei also knew the reason why his daughter chose to undergo her tribulation here. She wanted to surpass her father. Di Jotian had killed all those who had interfered with Ancient Spirit's tribulation. He was a half step into the eternal realm, and was virtually invincible in the primogenitor realm. In Di Jotian's opinion, these people were extremely stupid. They were simply tired of living and wanted to die. Not only did Di Jotian kill these people, but he also destroyed the forces behind these people. He wanted to use such a forceful method to intimidate everyone. Master, on a mountain peak near where Jiyu Ling was undergoing tribulation, Di Jotian bowed respectfully to Jiyu Fei. Master was indeed master. Even though he had become a half step into the eternal realm existence, in his eyes, Jiyu Fei was still an unreachable existence. You did well. Jiyu Fei said. He could sense that this world was recovering very quickly. Although he had just undergone his tribulation here, the heavenly Tao of this world had more or less recovered. In fact, when Jiyu Fei reached the eternal realm, he had actually given back some things to the world. The existence of the eternal realm could already change the heavenly Tao. It wasn't like an extreme Tao supremacy, who would cause chaos in the heavenly Tao when they underwent tribulation. Moreover, this chaos wasn't something that an initial extreme Tao supremacy could fix. Ancient Spirit's heavenly tribulation enveloped the entire area, causing countless living beings to be terrified to the extreme. Even the most ferocious of beasts were hiding in their nests, trembling in fear. How many years has it been since I last saw a heavenly tribulation of this level? In the distant sky, powerful figures were staring at Jiyu Ling, who was undergoing tribulation. The stronger the extreme Tao heavenly tribulation, the stronger Jiyu Ling's extreme Tao cultivation would be. I heard that this little girl is that person's daughter. Someone said something like that. Really? Someone doubted. Hihi, didn't you see the special characteristics of those who attacked just now? What special characteristics? They're all dead. Is that a special characteristic? Scram. These people all have a grudge against that person. Those who were watching Jiyu Ling's tribulation were discussing cautiously. Jiyu Fei definitely had many enemies in the ancestral realm. Back then, he had fought everywhere in the ancestral realm, and many extreme Tao supremacies had died at his hands. He had even killed a few supremacies. For example, the Li family's primogenitor, the Sky Clan Master, and the Chu family's old monster Chu were all supremacies. There were also the 12 supremacies of the ancestral realm. Of course, there were also the demons. However, the demons of the ancestral realm had already vanished into thin air. Boom! Suddenly, a beam of divine light blasted towards Jiyu Ling, who was undergoing tribulation. There was an item wrapped in the divine light. It was a huge hammer. An extremely powerful extreme Dao power erupted from the hammer, causing the entire sky and earth to shake. The sledgehammer directly broke through the tribulation clouds that shrouded the sky and instantly arrived in front of Guling. Just as the sledgehammer was about to smash Jiyu Ling to smithereens, the sledgehammer strangely froze in the air. Then, a huge hand reached out from afar and grabbed the sledgehammer. Catcher! The sledgehammer was actually crushed by the big hand, and the huge burst of extreme Dao power was instantly devoured by the big hand. It's that person again. Those supreme martial artists who were watching the show from afar and eating melon seeds in boredom all looked at this scene in astonishment. Come out! At the same time, Di Jotian reached out and grabbed the person who was hiding in the distant sky. The person struggled with all his might in the big hand, but it was all in vain. Di Jotian clenched his hand and the person was crushed in the void. Both his body and soul were destroyed in an instant. What a ruthless move! The Supremes who witnessed this scene were shocked to the extreme. Supreme supremacies were simply weaker than ants in front of that person. This person killed supreme supremacies as if they were chickens. Chapter 46-43. Jiyu Ling's tribulation alarmed all the extreme Dao-grade lifeforms in the primogenitor realm. Some old antiques that had lived for countless years also jumped out. The southern region of the primogenitor realm was Jiyu Fei's territory. The Sky race, the Li race, and the Chu race had all been crippled by Jiyu Fei back then. Some of these three great races had moved away from their ancestral lands. Some, like the Li race, had stayed behind. The forces that Jiyu Fei had left in the primogenitor realm were guarded by the Star Beast Venerable, so no one dared to provoke them. After all, the Star Beast was a Supremacilord existence. There weren't many Supremacilords in the entire primogenitor realm. Of course, the Star Beast Venerable and the others weren't in a good situation in the primogenitor realm either. They had too many enemies, and since those people couldn't do it in the open, they resorted to doing it in the dark. The primogenitor demons, in particular, would attack them from time to time. Although the Star Beast Venerable and the others weren't afraid of them, they were still annoyed. Now that Jiyu Fei had returned, everything had changed. The Star Beast Venerable and the others realized that they had made the right choice back then. They would follow Jiyu Fei and conquer the world. They would stand at the peak of the myriad realms. However, the Star Beast Venerable and the others didn't know that Jiyu Fei's eyes were no longer on the myriad realms. Jiyu Fei still had things to worry about in the myriad realms, so he naturally couldn't just leave like that. Even Jiyu Fei didn't know when he would return. He had to settle everything before he left so that he wouldn't have any worries. His daughter Jiyu Ling's tribulation was the most important thing right now. Rumble, the tribulation clouds were vast and mighty, shrouding an entire region. Endless lightning flashed within the tribulation clouds, and a terrifying destructive aura spread in all directions. At that moment, the person who had dared to sneak an attack on Jiyu Ling, who was undergoing tribulation, was killed by Di Jotian. Di Jotian simply didn't care who that person was or what his background was. He immediately destroyed that person's body and soul. He was killing a chicken to warn the monkeys. He was clearly telling those with ulterior motives that whoever dared to sneak an attack on Jiyu Ling would die. Yang Jiyu Fei suddenly thought of his wife. With a thought, he enveloped the entire primogenitor world. He could not sense Yang existence. Yang was also going to transcend the tribulation. Soon, he sensed the exact location of his 9 heavenly stars sword. Jiyu Fei locked onto that position and teleported away, disappearing from the primogenitor's realm. Master, Di Jotian was shocked to see Jiyu Fei disappear in front of him. Even though he was in the half-step eternal realm, he couldn't see how Jiyu Fei left. The current Jiyu Fei only needed to make a simple deduction to figure out where the 9 heavenly stars sword was. When Jiyu Fei arrived at the place where Yang was undergoing her tribulation, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He saw a group of people gathered outside the mountain ridge. Moreover, these people were all extreme grade supremacies. Since when were extreme Dao Supremes so worthless? Ji Fei could not help but sigh and shake his head. Buzz. The 9 heavenly stars' sword seemed to sense Ji Fei's arrival. It turned into a sword radiance and directly rushed out of the place where Ji Ling was undergoing her tribulation. Old friend, Ji Fei grabbed the 9 heavenly stars' sword and saw that it was no longer vibrating. Go. With a wave of Ji Fei's hand, the 9 heavenly stars' sword flew back. With the 9 heavenly stars' sword guarding by Yang Er's side, he was very relieved. After scanning the entire primogenitor world with his divine will, he did not find the existence of any eternal grade life forms. At this time, Yang Er was being tortured by the heavenly Tao. Her body had been destroyed countless times by the heavenly Tao's incarnations. Even the medicine cosmic cauldron had been broken several times. Yang Er was undergoing her tribulation, and so was the medicine cosmic cauldron. It should be over soon. Ji Fei sat cross-legged in the void. Those extreme Tao Supremes outside the ancestral Yuan Mountains could not sense his existence. This was the difference between eternal grade Supremes and extreme grade Supremes. I am standing right in front of you. As long as I don't want you to see me, you will definitely not be able to see me. Let's wait for the guy inside to finish his tribulation and attack together when he is still weak. Someone suggested capturing Yang Er. I don't care if you want to court death, but don't drag us down with you. Someone disagreed. The extreme Tao Sky Wolf in the ancestral Yuan Mountains was a good example. TSK, a bunch of cowards. That person said disdainfully. What did you say? Try saying it again. Someone was enraged. Isn't that so? The skinny, monkey-like extreme grade Supremes said disdainfully. Hun Tianhu, do you really want to die? A tall, mighty, middle-aged Supremes roared at the monkey-like extreme grade Supremes. Why? I want to die. Can you kill me? Hun Tianhu retorted. Come on, damn it. I, Lu Potian, will teach you how to be a person today. The middle-aged extreme grade Supreme being strode directly towards Hun Tianhu. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Hun Tianhu sneered and greeted him. Get lost if you want to fight. An old voice rang out. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that it was an old man with a walking stick who had spoken. Everyone was shocked. Even the wild and unruly celestial monkey was startled. Lu Potian shivered and almost peed his pants. Senior Zhu Yuan, the 2 Supremes nodded and bowed to the old man respectfully. Why are you still here? The old man was a little impatient. Yes, we will leave immediately. Hun Tian, who was the first to leave, followed by Lu Potian. The 2 of them disappeared in an instant. These 2 are really reckless. How dare they act so presumptuously in front of Emperor Zhu Yuan? Some people were gloating. Emperor Zhu Yuan was the most powerful extreme-grade great emperor in the history of the primal beginning realm. He had once shocked an era, and everyone thought that this great emperor had fallen. Who would have thought that today, this great emperor would appear again? The appearance of great Emperor Zhu Yuan scared some originally restless forces to directly cease their banners and cease their drums. With this great emperor around, who would dare to fight in the primal beginning realm? Sigh. Why did this little girl choose to undergo her tribulation in the ancestral Yuan mountain range? The old voice sounded again. Everyone looked at Emperor Zhu Yuan in surprise. Senior Zhu Yuan, why do you say that? The palace master of the Gold Shrine asked curiously. Even the palace master of the Gold Shrine didn't dare to be arrogant in front of Emperor Zhu Yuan. In the ancestral Yuan mountain range, great opportunities and great dangers coexist. Emperor Zhu Yuan sighed. What? This was the first time everyone had heard of such a thing. Could it be that those who failed to undergo the tribulation in the ancestral Yuan mountain range all encountered great dangers? Emperor Zhu Yuan's words made all the Supremes present think of many things. Great dangers. Ji Fei, who was hidden on the side, couldn't help but be moved when he heard this. Then, he released his divine sense to cover the entire ancestral Yuan mountain range. His divine sense even penetrated deep into the ancestral Yuan mountain range. Chapter 46-44. The ancestral origin mountain range was where the ancestral vein of the primal beginning world was located. The tallest mountain of the primal beginning world, the ancestral origin divine mountain, was there. In the eyes of countless powerful beings of the primal beginning world, the ancestral origin divine mountain was incomparably sacred. Some people believed that the Zhu Yuan mountain range was the source of life in the primordial world. Yang Er's heavenly tribulation was about to end. She had successfully survived the most difficult period, and the 9 heavenly Tao imprints had returned to the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao resonated and the aura of the entire world gradually became peaceful. The chaotic heavenly Tao was also gradually recovering. According to the recovery speed of the heavenly Tao, it would not take long for it to completely recover. Ji Yufei was a little surprised. The recovery speed of the heavenly Tao in the primordial world was too fast. In less than 100 years, it could launch another heavenly tribulation. This primordial world was a little interesting. However, at this moment, the entire Zhu Yuan mountain range suddenly shook, and an aura so powerful that it made the hearts of the extreme Tao Supremes palpitate burst out from the depths of the Zhu Yuan mountain range. It's here, the Great Tribulation. Heavenly Emperor Zhu Yuan immediately slipped away without a trace. The other Supremes also fled upon seeing this. The Gold Palace Master and the Sun Yin Celestial Tribe all ran away. Even the people from the Heaven Equal sect and the Chaotic War God Temple also ran away. This was the Great Tribulation that Emperor Zhu Yuan had mentioned. Who would dare to stay near the Zhu Yuan mountain range? The auspicious qi between the heavens and the earth was dispersed by the powerful aura that rushed out from the depths of the ancestral Yuan mountain range. A spirit burst out from the depths of the ancestral Yuan mountain range and instantly enveloped the entire area. This is the Great Tribulation. The Supreme Venerables who had already run far away turned around and were scared out of their wits. Damn, no wonder even Emperor Zhu Yuan had to flee. A huge figure appeared in the sky above the Zhu Yuan mountain range. Even the extreme Tao Supremes could not see the figure's true body. Although the figure was blurry, it was standing on the ground and its head was in the sky. It looked like a human, but it also looked like a terrifying heavenly beast. This is, Ji Yufei was surprised to see this. The existence hidden in the depths of the Zhu Yuan mountain range turned out to be a real chaos primordial heavenly beast. It was already heaven-defying for one or two of these things to appear in a world. One had to know that even a perfect world like the primordial world had never produced a primordial chaos heavenly beast. TCH, what great calamity. It's just a little bastard. Ji Yufei was speechless. At this time, the primordial chaos heavenly beast appeared in the world, causing the entire world to tremble. The ancestral Yuan mountain range was shaking violently. The ancestral Yuan mountain range cracked open, and the Great Earth Ancestor Qi soared into the sky. Each strand of Great Earth Ancestor Qi was like a giant dragon dancing around the primordial chaos heavenly beast. The primal chaos heavenly beast was incomparably powerful. It stood on an earth dragon and devoured the sun and moon, as if it could destroy the entire world. The heavenly beast opened its mouth and inhaled. The Supremes who had already fled to the ends of the horizon were involuntarily sucked into the heavenly beast's mouth. No, I can't accept this. Those extreme grade Supremes struggled desperately, wanting to rush out, but all their struggles were futile. Those extreme grade Supremes were actually swallowed by the heavenly beast in one gulp. After swallowing a few Supremes, the heavenly beast's aura became even stronger. F***CK. When the other Supremes saw this scene, they were scared half to death and immediately turned to flee. Who would dare to stay and wait to be eaten by that fellow? Some of the Supremes who wanted to watch from afar immediately fled. At this time, the heavenly beast fixed its eyes on Yang Er. However, a divine sword appeared beside Yang Er, and the aura emitted from the divine sword made the primordial chaos heavenly beast very apprehensive. The primordial chaos heavenly beast was born in the primordial chaos qi before the world was formed. This kind of heavenly beast, once born, could feed on true dragons, and was incomparably powerful. This heavenly beast definitely surpassed the extreme grade realm. Roar. The heavenly beast suddenly roared angrily and swooped towards Yang Er to swallow her whole. Evil creature. Ji Yufei was displeased. He directly stretched out his hand, and a huge hand that was even bigger than the primordial chaos heavenly beast directly grabbed at the heavenly beast. Roar! The primordial chaos heavenly beast felt threatened, and actually turned to flee back to the ancestral earth vein in the ancestral Yuan mountain range. The ancestral earth vein under the ancestral Yuan mountain range was the birthplace of this heavenly beast. As long as it fled back to the ancestral earth vein, it would be safe. However, this heavenly beast was destined to not be able to escape. Ji Fei directly grabbed this heavenly beast, and it was simply as easy as catching a chick. The layer of primordial chaos heavenly beast's primordial chaos chi dissipated, and the huge figure rapidly shrunk, revealing this heavenly beast's true form. This heavenly beast turned out to be a little white rabbit. Ji Fei was a little dumbfounded. What a cute little rabbit. When Yang saw the little rabbit in Ji Fei's hand, her eyes immediately filled with little stars. Ji Fei was speechless. Just now, this little rabbit ate a few supremes in one bite. Moreover, Yang only had eyes for this little rabbit, and directly ignored him. This is a primordial chaos heavenly beast. Ji Fei said. What a domineering name, I like it. Yang said. Sigh. Left with no other choice, Ji Fei directly sealed this little rabbit. This little rabbit is female. Ji Fei was a little surprised. Female? Yang was even more delighted. Let's use a forbidden technique, Ji Fei said with a smile. With this little rabbit protecting Yang he could leave with peace of mind, and wander around the eternal world. This little rabbit was a half-step eternal realm existence, and had lived for countless years. Its cultivation was extremely powerful, and even Di Jotian and Tong Yu might not be a match for it. What forbidden technique should I use? Yang had just passed the supreme heavenly tribulation, and for a while, she did not know what abilities she had. Ji Fei smiled helplessly, and then pointed a finger at Yang forehead, passing a forbidden technique to her. Ha, Yang laughed, and in the next moment, she formed a seal with both hands, and then a forbidden technique power entered the depths of the little rabbit's soul. What are you doing? What's that? I feel something entering my soul, what's going on? The little rabbit was shocked and angry. It was the first rabbit in the primordial realm, and in the primordial realm, there was no living creature that had lived longer than it. This little rabbit had never imagined that there would be someone in this world who could capture it and even cast a forbidden technique on it. All right, I will be your master from now on. If I die, you will suffer with me. Yang was really happy to obtain a pet beast. This was the best gift she had received after passing the tribulation. Hearing this, the little rabbit almost fainted from anger. Chapter 46-45. As the strongest creature in the primordial beginning realm, the primordial chaos rabbit had never imagined that it would be captured and become someone else's pet beast. It wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The other party was too cruel to tamper with its soul. With the primordial chaos rabbit's cultivation, it could naturally sense that something had suddenly appeared on its soul, and it was definitely not something good. At this time, as the primordial chaos rabbit was subdued by Ji Fei and Yang planted a restrictive technique on it, the entire ancestral Yuan mountains gradually calmed down. Damn it! The moment the seal on the rabbit was undone, the ferocious rabbit punched out, turning a mountain in the distance into dust. Little rabbit, it's not a good habit to destroy the environment. You can't casually destroy the environment in the future, understand? Yang directly grabbed the little rabbit and hugged it in her arms. The primordial chaos rabbit was immediately flustered. It wanted to cry. It's been a long time since our family of three gathered together. Ji Fei looked at Yang and said, Yes. Yang nodded. Let's go back. After saying that, Ji Fei flicked his sleeve and they disappeared into the void, not leaving a trace behind. Several hours after Ji Fei and the others left, the extreme supremes of the primordial beginning realm dared to slowly approach the ancestral Yuan mountains to investigate the situation. No one knew that the great calamity mentioned by Great Emperor Zhu Yuan had already been resolved by Ji Fei. The great calamity of the ancestral Yuan mountains was actually caused by the little rabbit. This little rabbit was not a vegetarian, but a carnivore. Moreover, it was extremely cruel when it ate. At this time, Jiyu Fei directly crossed the boundary wall with Yang and Little Rabbit in her arms, appearing in the ancestral realm. For Jiyu Fei, who was in the eternal realm, as long as he knew the coordinates, he could instantly cross the boundary wall. This was the extraordinary means of the eternal realm. At this time, Jiyu Ling's Extreme Supreme's heavenly tribulation had already reached the final stage. Yang couldn't help feeling heartache when she saw Jiyu Ling's miserable state. However, she knew that Jiyu Ling could only become a true extreme sovereign through this ordeal. Soon, Yang realized that her daughter was fighting with her husband. To be exact, it was her husband's avatar. Jiyu Fei had once undergone a tribulation in the ancestral realm. He had left a great Dao mark on the ancestral realm's heavenly Dao. At this time, Jiyu Fei's great Dao imprint turned into another Jiyu Fei, and he was locked in a fierce battle with Guling. Jiyu Fei of the Great Path displayed astonishing combat prowess. He performed the Heavenly Hand, which instantly enveloped Jiyu Ling and blasted him into a bloody mist. Jiyu Ling's body and soul were almost destroyed. Jiyu Ling cultivated the 9 esoteric secrets of the immortal Dao, and the Heaven Ascension secret art gave her an almost undying body. In the next moment, she instantly reassembled her martial body and continued to battle with Jiyu Fei's incarnation of the Great Path. The Extreme Path Heavenly Tribulation could not last forever. As long as Jiyu Ling could hold on until the Extreme Path Heavenly Tribulation dissipated, she would win. However, Jiyu Ling had held on for several hours, which left her speechless. Jiyu Fei's incarnation of the Great Path was too strong, and Jiyu Ling was in a miserable state. Sigh. Yang knew this feeling very well. If one's mental fortitude was weak, they would not be able to hold on. Master, mistress, at this time, Di Jotian came over. Did any of those blind fellows attack again? Jiyu Fei asked. Master, no, Di Jotian answered. Di Jotian replied. With him protecting Jiyu Ling, those people did not dare to show their faces at all. Jiyu Fei released his divine will. With his eternal grade spiritual force, he instantly enveloped the entire ancestral realm. Soon, he discovered a few unusual places. It was the aura of the outer realm. Some peerless experts had opened up another world, and these worlds were the outer realm. Hiding in the outer realm could indeed avoid the pursuit of extreme path experts, but to Jiyu Fei, who was at the eternal realm, he could find these outer realm no matter how well they were hidden. Jiyu Fei wanted to attack, but then he thought about it. If he took care of all these fellows, wouldn't his disciples have no opponents? This was not a good thing. Another few hours passed, and the power of the extreme path heavenly tribulation finally began to weaken. This made Yang breathe a sigh of relief. Another 6 hours passed, and Jiyu Ling's extreme path heavenly tribulation was finally over. The world became auspicious, and endless great path power condensed on Jiyu Ling's body, sublimated, and transformed. An extremely powerful extreme path aura erupted from Jiyu Ling's body. She had painstakingly cultivated and finally became an extreme path supremacy. This was all thanks to the Great Path Golden Lotus. Otherwise, she would have been restricted by the apex bloodline inherited from Jiyu Fei, and it would have been difficult for her to take that step forward. Father, mother. Jiyu Ling came in front of Jiyu Fei and Yang. Good daughter. Yang hugged Little Bunny and patted Jiyu Ling's head. What a cute little bunny. Jiyu Ling's eyes lit up when she saw the little bunny in Yang arms. Let's find a place to gather, Jiyu Fei said as he directly tore the void and brought Jiyu Ling and Yang back to the human realm. Wanxiang City was definitely one of the largest cities in the human realm. Because of Jiyu Fei, Wanxiang City had become the center of the eastern domain of the human realm. The current Wanxiang City was incomparably prosperous, and the scale of the city was constantly expanding. Even the Zhao family and the Dongfang family did not dare to compete with Wanxiang City. They had kept a low profile, but the Taishan sect appeared at this time. The news of the alliance between Wanxiang City and the Taishan sect soon spread throughout the eastern domain of the human realm. The small Taishan sect actually allied with the giant Wanxiang City? What kind of joke was this? However, very soon, the major forces of the eastern domain learned one thing, and that was that the Taishan sect was actually Jiyu Fei's former sect. Before Jiyu Fei reached the Tao, he had been a disciple of the Taishan sect. However, the Taishan sect from back then had been destroyed, and the current Taishan sect was only a new sect established by Li Lingfeng, a disciple of the Taishan sect. It was very difficult for a new sect to gain a foothold in the cultivation world, but the Taishan sect was an exception. The new Taishan sect leader was Jiyu Fei's senior brother, Li Lingfeng. The new Taishan sect leader actually had such an identity. This was something that no one could have imagined before. At this time, in the entire human realm, who would dare to go against Jiyu Fei? Previously, when Jiyu Fei had returned to the human realm, he had directly wiped out all the hostile forces. Who would dare to provoke this god of death again? The head of the primordial Zhao family had personally come to apologize. The Dongfang family had also sent people at the level of an ancestor. They wanted to completely resolve the grievances between the two families and were willing to make the greatest concessions. When Jiyu Fei's family once again arrived in Wanxiang City, it immediately caused a stir in the city. Chapter 46-46. Jiyu Fei, Yang and Ling are reunited in the mortal world, enjoying the beauty of their family. News of Jiyu Fei's return to the mortal world also spread. Countless cultivators flocked to the eastern domain, wanting to see Jiyu Fei. The entire mortal world was in an uproar. However, Jiyu Fei's family was elusive. No one could find them. With Jiyu Fei's current cultivation, even an extreme Dao sovereign wouldn't be able to find him if he wanted to, let alone others. The mortal world no longer had the power of heavenly punishment. The heavenly punishment formation had been taken away by Jiyu Fei. After Jiyu Fei's restoration, the mortal world's heavenly Dao was strengthened to the extreme, able to withstand the power of extreme Dao sovereigns. Of course, if a battle between extreme Dao sovereigns broke out in the mortal world, it would still cause unimaginable damage. Jiyu Fei's footprints covered the 5 ancestral planets of the mortal world. On this day, they arrived at the ancestral planet Crepe Myrtle. Crepe Myrtle's G-clan was the strongest cultivation clan in the ancestral planet, the true ruler of the planet. Other forces couldn't shake the G-clan at all. However, the G-clan was now divided into 2 camps, one led by Violet Sovereign, the other led by Ji Chongkong. There was a great disparity in strength between the 2 camps. In the beginning, Violet Sovereign's forces were enough to crush Ji Chongkong's forces. Jiyu Fei couldn't be bothered with the G-clan's matters. He Tian wasn't in Crepe Myrtle's ancestral planet, no one knew where he went for seclusion. Jiyu Fei did see Ji Chongkong, but Ji Chongkong couldn't see him. They found an inn in one of Crepe Myrtle's G-clan's cities and settled down. Solitary City was one of the largest cities in Crepe Myrtle's ancestral planet. The city lord of Solitary City was Ji Yuan, a quasi-sovereign. Ji Yuan had once gone to the Chaos Immortal Mansion world to seize the Grand Tao Lotus. Not only did he fail, but he also returned with heavy injuries. Ji Yuan supported Empress Ji. Jiyu Fei and his family had just arrived at Independent City when the city lord, Ji Yuan, was assassinated. Just like that, the entire unique city was under martial law. The entire city was locked down. People from the outside couldn't enter, and people inside couldn't leave. What happened? Inside the inn, Jiyu Fei was taken aback. The streets were filled with unique city's soldiers clad in battle armor. They were going from house to house, searching for the murderer of unique city's castellan, Ji Yuan. Boom! Suddenly, a house beside the inn exploded. 2 figures charged out from the house and powerful energy ripples erupted from their bodies. As soon as the 2 of them rushed out, they started fighting. Quasi-Supreme? Jiyu Fei was a little surprised. This solitary city wasn't as simple as it seemed. There were actually quite a few quasi-supreme beings hidden here. Soon, one of the 2 quasi-supremes forced back the other middle-aged man wearing a golden battlesuit, turned around and fled. Father, what happened? Jiyu Ling walked out. I don't know, but I heard that Unique City's castellan was assassinated. Jiyu Fei said. Their family had sealed their cultivation, maintaining their cultivation at the heavenly sovereign realm. Unique City's castellan was killed. Jiu Ling was taken aback. The death of a city's castellan would cause chaos in the entire city. Are they going to start a war? The matter of Ji Changkong and Empress Ji fighting for the Ji clan's patriarch position was no secret in the ancestral Myrtle Star. However, they had always been fighting in the dark before this. Now, they were willing to shed all pretense of cordiality. Ji Yufei couldn't care less about Ji Changkong's trivial matters. At this time, the two quasi-supremes were already far away. Powerful energy ripples could be felt from afar. The unique city's grand formation couldn't stop quasi-supreme beings. One had to know that the mortal realm didn't allow the existence of extreme Tao energy. Therefore, the unique city's grand formation was only a quasi-supreme level formation. Even if it was raised to its limit, it would only be a quasi-supreme level formation. A quasi-supreme level formation couldn't stop a real quasi-supreme level formation. Open the door, come out. At this time, a group of soldiers in armor charged into the inn under the lead of a general. The Guest Cloud Inn was one of the largest inns in Unique City. Hundreds of cultivators resided here, some of which were even sages. For example, Ji Yufei's family maintained their cultivation at the Heavenly Sovereign Realm. Hihi, so it's Bailey Zhongjun. May I know what brings General Bailey to my inn? The plump shopkeeper quickly came forward to greet him. Fatty Wang, you really don't know why I'm here? Bailey Zhongjun looked at the plump shopkeeper with a mocking look. This, shopkeeper Wang's expression changed. He knew he was in trouble. Hurry up and call out all your men here. Bailey Zhongjun roared at shopkeeper Wang. Yes, yes, yes. Shopkeeper Wang immediately ordered his men to gather the guests in the main hall of the inn. Bailey Zhonchuan, how impressive of you. A cold laugh could be heard as a white-haired old man appeared in the main hall. Bailey Zhonchuan was shocked when he saw the man, but he quickly calmed down. Old monkey, do you have anything to do with the assassination of my city lord? Bailey Zhonchuan stared at the old man and sneered. What did you say? You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. You must be responsible for your words. Old monkey's expression turned ugly. Assassinating the city lord of Unique City was a serious matter. Even Old Monkey would not dare to get involved in such a matter. Then get lost. Bailey Zhonchuan said proudly. Old Monkey was so angry that he glared at Bailey Zhonchuan, but he did not dare to say anything else. Soon, all the guests in the Guest Cloud Inn were asked to leave the main hall, including Ji Yufei's family. Who has just checked in 2 days ago? Bailey Zhonchuan asked calmly as he flipped through the guest register. It's all recorded on the register. Shopkeeper Wang quickly said. Who's Shen Chen? Bailey Zhonchuan suddenly asked. I'm Shen Chen. May I know why you're looking for me? A white-robed middle-aged man walked out from the crowd. A half-sage. Bailey Zhonchuan's eyes narrowed when he saw the middle-aged man. Take him down. In the next second, he ordered his men to take him down. Who do you think you are? Shen Chen wanted to resist. However, Bailey Zhonchuan stepped forward and destroyed Shen Chen with a punch. Seeing this scene, all the guests in the lobby were shocked. Killing someone just because they didn't agree with him? Ji Yufei was displeased. Kill anyone who dares to resist. This is what happens to this person. Bailey Zhonchuan scanned the hundreds of cultivators and said coldly. Preposterous. Chapter 46-47. Crepe Myrtle Ancestral Star, Solitary City. At this moment, the entire city was in a state of lockdown. The people inside the city could not leave, and the people outside the city could not enter. In the Solitary City, the entire city had fallen into chaos. Countless soldiers were searching from house to house, trying to find the real murderer who had assassinated the city lord of the Solitary City, Ji Yuan. However, the real culprit was hiding in the city. It was easier said than done to find the culprit. At this time, in the lobby of Ku Yunlai Inn, all the guests who stayed in Ku Yunlai Inn, including Ji Yufei and his family, they were forced to leave their residences and were full of resentment. However, when Bailey Zhonchuan killed the half-sage Shen Chen in front of everyone became obedient. Bailey Zhonchuan was the right-hand man of the city lord of Solitary City. His cultivation had already reached the Great Sage Realm. He was decisive in killing and had the demeanor of a great general. At this moment, Bailey Zhenchuan killed a few people who had stayed in the inn for the past 2 days. In his opinion, these people's deaths were not a big deal. One should know that a high and mighty dragon would never care about ants on the ground. I'd rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Those below the sage level can leave now. Bailey Zhenchuan waved his hand and said. It was impossible for those below the sage level to assassinate the city lord of Solitary City. Even if the city lord was seriously injured during the fight for the Great Path Golden Lotus, those below the sage level were definitely no match for the city lord. The person who assassinated the city lord must be in existence above the sage level. The guests who were below the sage level immediately left the lobby and went into hiding as if they had been pardoned from a great sin. There were only 6 people left in the lobby. Among these 6, 3 were from Ji Yufei's family. The other 3 were also at the sage level, but one of them looked like a young man who had just broken through to the sage level. Lord Bailey, why are you doing this? I, Ling Shan, am a member of the Ling clan. Why are you keeping me here? The young man shouted at Bailey Zhenchuan. The Ling clan of Solitary City was a major force in Solitary City. Even the city lord of Solitary City was unwilling to provoke them. The Ling clan is the biggest suspect in the assassination of the city lord. Bailey Zhenchuan sneered. What? When Ling Shan heard this, he couldn't help but be shocked. Are they going to attack my Ling clan? This seemed to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The lord of Solitary City was assassinated, and if the Ji family framed them, they would have a reason to uproot the entire Ling family. Thinking of this, Ling Shan broke out in cold sweat. Did the 3 of you just check in today? Bailey Zhenchuan's gaze swept across the faces of Ji Yufei's family, before finally landing on Ji Yuling. This girl was not bad. The moment Bailey Zhenchuan saw Ji Yuling, his attention was drawn to her. Ji Yuling's temperament was very unique and had a shocking attraction. Ji Yufei couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this guy. Aya, what's wrong? You think you're a saint, so you're cocky? Bailey Zhenchuan's eyes widened as a powerful great sage aura erupted from his body, causing the entire Yunlai Inn to shake. If it wasn't for the protection of the formation, the entire inn would have been destroyed the moment Bailey Zhenchuan's aura erupted. Get out of here before I get angry, Ji Yufei said impatiently. Haha, what is this guy talking about? How dare he tell us to get lost? Did a donkey kick him in the head? When the soldiers behind Bailey Zhenchuan heard Ji Yufei's words, they immediately mocked and ridiculed him. Their general was a great sage. Although these 3 guys were also sages, they were definitely not great sages, let alone a match for Bailey Zhenchuan. You can't afford to offend me. Ji Yufei was a little annoyed. Haha, is that so? Then let's see how I can't afford to offend you. As he spoke, Bailey Zhenchuan directly smashed his fist towards Ji Yufei. Just now, he'd blasted that saint called Shen Chen into a mist of blood with a single punch. Both his body and soul had been destroyed. He thought that this time, he could also blast this guy into pieces. However, in the next moment, a shocking scene happened. Bailey Zhenchuan's fist suddenly stopped when it was about to hit Ji Yufei. It was as if there was an invisible wall in front of Bailey Zhenchuan's fist. What? Bailey Zhenchuan's shock was no small matter. Was this guy pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Bailey Zhenchuan's forehead was sweating when he thought of this. He suddenly retreated, trying to distance himself from Ji Yufei. However, Ji Yufei grabbed with his right hand, and Bailey Zhenchuan directly flew towards his right hand. Bailey Zhenchuan's body was rapidly shrinking. Like an eagle catching a chick, Ji Yufei directly grabbed the extremely arrogant and decisive Unique City's General Bailey Zhenchuan in his hand. Bailey Zhenchuan kept struggling in Ji Yufei's hand, but all his struggles were in vain. Everyone who saw Ji Yufei grab a great sage in one move was shocked to the extreme. Bailey Zhenchuan's subordinates, who were mocking Ji Yufei just now, were so scared that they almost peed their pants. Senior, I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please let me go. Bailey Zhenchuan began to beg for mercy. Weren't you very arrogant just now? Are you afraid now? Ji Yufei said indifferently. I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I'm begging you, please let me go. Killing me won't do you any good. Bailey Zhengchuan was really anxious. He knew that his life was in the hands of Yi Shiwen. He didn't want to die. Killing you won't do me any good, but a supreme being can't be insulted. So, you have to die. Ji Yufei said expressionlessly. What? You're a supreme being? Bailey Zhengchuan was completely confused. He had actually offended a supreme being. He still wanted to beg for mercy, but at this moment, Ji Yufei exerted force with his fingers. Bailey Zhengchuan immediately turned into a cloud of blood mist. His body and soul were destroyed in an instant. He was deader than dead. Run! Bailey Zhengchuan's subordinates were scared out of their wits. They immediately turned around and fled. Ji Ling sneered. With just a thought, the soldiers who were fleeing fell to the ground. A drop of blood seeped out of each soldier's forehead. How dare you kill the soldiers of my unique city? Are you trying to rebel? At this moment, a voice came from the sky. Then, a figure flashed and descended from the sky, landing in the courtyard in front of the inn's lobby. Ji Ling couldn't help but feel surprised when he saw this person. He was a middle-aged man wearing golden fighting will. This person was one of the two quasi-supreme beings who were fighting in the sky just now. Scram! Ji Yufei didn't even look at this guy. What? Everyone present looked at Ji Yufei as if they were looking at a monster. This guy dared to tell Lord Ji Long to scram? Chapter 46-48. Other than the city lord, Ji Yuan, there were two deputy city lords in Solitary City, and Ji Long was one of them. Although Ji Long wasn't an extreme-grade supremacy, his cultivation base had reached the quasi-supremacy realm. This time, someone actually assassinated the city lord, Ji Yuan, and succeeded. This made Ji Long and the others indescribably shocked. When the news reached the Ji family's ancestral land, the Ji family immediately sent a quasi-supreme expert to investigate. The entire Ji clan was enraged by Ji Yuan's assassination, swearing to find the culprit and tear him to pieces. One should know that Ji Yuan was a member of Empress Ji's faction. Assassinating Ji Yuan was akin to slapping Empress Ji's face and cutting off her right-hand man. At this time, Ji clan's experts were searching the entire city, not leaving a single house untouched. One after another, powerful figures appeared in Solitary City. Ji Yufei sensed a total of 5 quasi-supreme divine sense fluctuations. Apart from the guy in front of him, there were actually 5 more quasi-supreme experts in Solitary City. The Ji clan really had a lot of experts at their disposal. The strength displayed by the Ji clan was enough to sweep through the human realm with few opponents. One should know that ever since the human realm's heavenly punishment was taken away by Ji Yufei, Supremes began to appear in the human realm. However, the number of Supremes in the human realm was still too little. As long as they didn't provoke a Supreme, the Ji clan's strength would be hard to find a worthy opponent in the human realm. The Desolate Era's factions in the Soaring Dragon Ancestral Star might seem powerful, but they were nothing compared to the Ji clan. After Ji Yufei repaired the heavenly Tao in the human realm, the heaven and earth spiritual qi was gradually recovering. The human ancient path connecting the 5 ancestral planets had also been repaired. Powerful living beings in the 5 ancestral planets could now travel between the 5 ancestral planets through the human ancient path. Didn't you hear my father telling you to scram? Gulling glared at Ji Long coldly. Ha ha, Ji Long laughed in anger. These 3 puny saints dared to act so presumptuously in front of him. They were courting death. What are you laughing at? If you don't scram now, you'll end up like them. Gulling pointed at the corpses on the ground. She was now an extreme-grade utmost being. With just a single thought, she could unleash a formless sword intent to kill her enemies from 10 million li away. Wherever her spiritual will could reach, her sword chi could also reach. Die. Ji Long was really angry. He waved his hand, and 3 sword lights immediately rushed out of his hand towards Ji Yufei's family. As soon as the sword light appeared, the surrounding temperature immediately dropped rapidly. Master Long is angry. They're dead meat. The fat shopkeeper had already hidden far away. He couldn't help but shake his head when he saw this scene. You dare to anger Master Long? You must be tired of living. The others were also not optimistic about Ji Yufei and the others. In their opinion, Ji Yufei and the others were only sacred-level experts, while Ji Long was a quasi-supreme martial artist. A quasi-supreme martial artist was only half a step away from becoming an extreme supreme martial artist. The attack of a quasi-supreme was extraordinary. However, at the next moment, a scene that left everyone dumbfounded appeared. The little girl seemed to have casually waved her hand, and the 3 streaks of sword light shattered in the air. What's going on? She's just a sage, how could she? Something's going to happen, something's going to happen. The people hiding at the side to watch the show were extremely excited. Ji Long's shock was no small matter. The other party easily resolved his attack. Such a method was definitely not something a mere sage could do. Who are you guys? Ji Long was not a fool. Although the 3 of them seemed to only have the cultivation of a sage, they were definitely suppressing their cultivation. These people were playing the trick of pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. You're not qualified to know who we are, Gulling said indifferently. Did you guys assassinate our city lord? Ji Long said angrily. Assassinate? Do we need to assassinate your city lord? What a joke. Gulling really wanted to laugh. In this world, if their family wanted to kill someone, there was no need to assassinate them. Alright, since you don't want to leave, then stay, Gulling said. Want to kill me? Dream on. Ji Long soared into the sky and was about to escape. Me. Ji Ling sneered. In the next moment, Ji Long let out a blood-curdling scream and fell from the sky. He had died on the spot. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned. That was Lord Long, Ji Long, and he died just like that. That little girl did not seem to have moved at all. Killing with her will? And the one she killed was a quasi-supreme? Was that even possible? In Solitary City, Ji Long was known as a ruthless and decisive person who killed without hesitation. However, no one would have thought that this Lord Long would actually die. It's so chaotic outside, let's go back to our room and rest, Ji Yufei said and turned to leave. Gulling and Yang followed suit. Ji Yuan was dead, and so was Lord Long. Solitary City was only left with a deputy city lord, Ji Xiaohua. Although Ji Xiaohua was a girl's name, he was a real man, and a very manly man. People called him Brother Hua, who was like a pear blossom on a begonia. What happened? Ji Yuan's life tablet is broken, and so is Ji Long's. Who killed them? Ji Xiaohua sat on the throne of the City Lord Mansion, holding his chin. If Ji Yuan and Ji Long were dead, then so be it. Ji Xiaohua and they weren't real brothers. The 3 of them usually played their own games. But now that Ji Yuan and Ji Long were dead, when would it be Ji Xiaohua's turn? I want to continue playing. I don't want to die, Ji Xiaohua muttered to himself. Everyone had been sent out by him, and he was the only one left in the hall. Ji Xiaohua suddenly noticed a person standing at the entrance of the hall. Since you're here, why don't you come in? Ji Xiaohua stared at that person, his expression turning serious. Haha, the man smiled as he walked into the hall step by step. This person was Ji Changkong. Cousin, it's a mess outside, but you're so free. After Ji Changkong entered the great hall, he casually sat on a seat and crossed his legs. Don't tell me that Ji Yuan and Ji Long were killed by you, Ji Xiaohua suddenly said. Why would I kill them? What's in it for me? Ji Changkong smiled. It's not good for you, but it can pull you down, Ji Xiaohua muttered. Someone is trying to cause trouble, Ji Changkong sighed. It can't be. Ji Xiaohua suddenly thought of a possibility, and sweat appeared on his forehead. That person's ruthlessness is not something you can imagine. Chapter 46-49. Ji Changkong's appearance in Unique City surprised Ji Xiaohua. One should know that the current Unique City was in a very sensitive state. The city lord, Ji Yuan, was assassinated, and Ji Long was killed. City Lord Ji Yuan was someone from Empress Ji's camp. Ji Changkong's appearance in Unique City would inevitably arouse suspicions. This was very disadvantageous for Ji Changkong, because everyone would think that he was the one who assassinated Ji Yuan and Vice City Lord Ji Long. However, since Ji Changkong dared to appear here, He naturally had something to rely on. What exactly do you want? Inside the city lord's residence, Ji Xiaohua, who was sitting on the city lord's throne, stared at Ji Changkong with a grave expression. Don't you know what I want? Ji Changkong smiled. What do you want? I don't know. Ji Xiaohua wasn't stupid. He didn't want to choose a side because the consequences of standing on the wrong side were very serious. For example, City Lord Ji Yuan and Vice City Lord Ji Long were both dead. No matter who killed Ji Yuan and Ji Long, there was only one conclusion. Someone was trying to cause trouble. No one knew whether those people were targeting Empress Ji or Ji Changkong. All right, I won't force you, but you're on your own. Ji Changkong stood up and walked out. Looking at Ji Changkong's back, Ji Xiaohua's lips moved, but he didn't say anything in the end. He didn't rely on some *T luck to survive until now. Not choosing a side often allowed him to live longer. Reality proved that he was right. This time, he still didn't want to choose a side. Ji Changkong and Empress Ji were fighting for the position of clan lord. Ji Changkong wanted to pull Empress Ji down, while Empress Ji wanted to kill Ji Changkong. The two factions fighting openly and covertly was definitely not a good thing for the Ji clan. The endless fighting between the two factions would only weaken the Ji clan's strength. Now, Ji Yuan and Ji Long were both dead. They were quasi-supreme existences. Even the Ji clan's foundation would be shaken after losing two quasi-supreme existences. Right now, the biggest problem for the Ji clan was that they didn't have an extreme-grade sovereign. In the current human realm, a force without an extreme-grade sovereign could no longer be considered as a top-tier force. If an extreme supreme being were to make a move, even the Ziwei Ji clan would not be able to resist and would be wiped out immediately. Sigh. Ji Xiaohua let out a long sigh and quietly sat on the throne without saying anything. At this time, in the inn where Ji Yufei's family was staying, the fat shopkeeper's attitude towards Ji Yufei's family had completely changed. He was trying his best to curry favor with Ji Yufei's family, because he knew that this family was definitely not simple. These few people definitely had a great background. They didn't even place the Ji clan in their eyes. Only those superpowers with an extreme supreme being would dare to disregard the Ji clan. Soon, Ji Xiaohua appeared outside the inn. Someone had spread the news that Ji Yufei and his family had killed Ji Long. That was why Ji Xiaohua had come so quickly. However, so what? No matter how many people come, I will kill them all. Ji Yufei didn't care at all. Lord Ji clan's Ji Xiaohua seeks an audience. The fat shopkeeper came and carefully said to Ji Yufei, I won't see you. Scram. Ji Yufei impatiently waved his hand. Yes. The fat shopkeeper hurriedly left Ji Yufei's room. I won't see you. Ji Xiaohua was surprised. Who are those three people? Ji Xiaohua directly took out a jade box and handed it to the fat shopkeeper. Hee. The fat shopkeeper hurriedly accepted the jade box. They are suspected to be from the extreme Dao clan. The fat shopkeeper purposely lowered his voice. What? Ji Xiaohua immediately turned around and left the inn. Not long after Ji Xiaohua left, Ji Changkong came. These fellows are really never-ending. Ji Yufei shook his head. Under his senses, he could even clearly hear the fat shopkeeper's words. Let him wait outside. The fat shopkeeper had just walked outside Ji Yufei's room when Ji Yufei's voice came from inside. Yes. The fat shopkeeper hurriedly left. Just as Ji Changkong was about to pay his respects to Ji Yufei, in a certain world outside Buzhou ancestral planet, a terrifying violent ape the size of a small mountain swooped down from the sky in a desolate forest. A young man stood under the tree. The violent ape directly pounced towards the white-robed youth. The violent ape's pounce caused a biting cold wind that caused the trees below to shake violently. Withered branches and withered leaves were blown into the air. Boundless baleful aura filled every inch of the forest, causing the white-robed youth to feel suffocated. His breathing became somewhat rapid. The demonic ape covered in blood-colored fur pounced like a huge mountain. It was extremely ferocious, and its blood-colored eyes were like demonic, blood-colored stars, emitting an endless evil light. It swore to tear the creature that dared to offend it to pieces. The thoughts of a ferocious beast were very simple. The demonic ape felt threatened by the white-robed youth. Thus, its most immediate thought was to eliminate the white-robed youth as a threat. "Come at me." The young man in white suddenly straightened his back, and all the muscles and bones in his body immediately let out a series of crackling sounds. His muscles and bones roared like thunder. He raised his head to look at the demonic ape above him, and a trace of madness appeared on his face. He wiped away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and a great force erupted from his body, causing his long hair that was like a waterfall to flutter wildly. Roar! The white-robed youth roared angrily. His expression became extremely ferocious and terrifying. He spread his legs. Pang! The ground immediately exploded. The soil under his feet undulated like waves. At the same time, his right palm chopped upwards like a blade. Clang! Like a divine weapon being unsheathed, a dazzling saber light immediately shot out from the white-robed youth's palm. The dazzling saber light tore through the void and rapidly chopped towards the demonic ape. A chilling saber aura emanated from the white-robed youth's body. The trees within a 5-jong radius were instantly sliced into pieces. The entire forest began to shake. The trees swayed crazily, causing leaves to fall to the ground. With the white-robed youth at the center, huge cracks extended from the white-robed youth's feet. At this moment, the white-robed youth's aura was enough to make the heavens and earth lose their color. He was like a god of war reincarnated. With a domineering and awe-inspiring saber light, he struck the sky with his saber. A hint of fear appeared in the demonic ape's blood-red eyes. It instinctively sensed danger and reached out with its claws, grabbing at the blade light that was like a waterfall. Pang! The peerless saber light shattered under the demonic ape's sharp claws. Roar! The demonic ape let out an earth-shattering roar. Its huge body, which was like a small mountain, was flipped over the moment it grabbed the saber light. A spray of blood exploded in the air. The smell of blood immediately wafted in the air. Boom! The entire ground trembled. The devil ape landed in the forest, and a part of the forest was immediately destroyed by the violent ape's feet. The violent ape's huge claws were already badly mutilated, and beast blood flowed out and dripped onto the ground. Whoosh! The demonic ape did something that the white-robed youth could not imagine. It actually turned around and fled. Bang! 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 Its heavy footsteps caused the forest to tremble. Wherever the demonic ape passed, the trees collapsed. Broken branches and broken leaves swirled in the air. "Where do you think you're going?" The white-robed youth was startled. He did not expect the demonic ape to flee. Therefore, he immediately leaped up and dashed towards the demonic ape like a phantom. On a distant tree stood a lady in purple. She quietly watched the scene in front of her. Chapter 4650. The Soaring Dragon Ancestral Star. The 3 major Daoist sects of the Eastern region used to be so glorious. Back in the day, the 3 great Daoist societies controlled the cultivation world of the Eastern domain. No one dared to disobey their orders. That was when the 3 great Daoist societies were at their peak. However, as the world changed, the forces of the ancient desolation returned, and the Eastern region demons suddenly rose up, causing the 3 great Daoist sects to decline. The Taishen sect, one of the 3 great Taoist sects, was almost destroyed. Of course, the Taishen sect could not escape the tragedy of being annihilated in the end, and the Shongqing sect and the Guangqing celestial sect had both disappeared without a trace. In the current world, how many people still remembered the 3 great Taoist sects of the Eastern region? All the sects, all the powers, could not escape the merciless passage of time. None of them could exist forever. Even the ancient desolate era had existed for countless years. There would come a day when they would fall and perish. Meanwhile, in one of the outer realms of the ancestral star of Buzhou lived a group of cultivators who had lived in seclusion for many years. This outer world was not too big. However, the spiritual energy there was very thick. It was very suitable for cultivators to cultivate here. However, this place wasn't suitable for powerful cultivators because the laws of the heavens and earth here weren't complete. It was difficult to give birth to true experts. However, to the Guangqing immortal sect, this shock was enough. The entire Guangqing Immortal sect had moved from the Soaring Dragon Ancestral Star to the Buzhou Ancestral Star. They were fortunate enough to occupy an outer realm that had yet to be discovered by anyone. They recuperated here, waiting for the opportunity to return. The destruction of the Taishan sect all those years ago was a warning to the Guangqing Celestial sect. They had no choice but to find a way out and completely withdraw from the world of cultivation. The Shongqing sect did the same and chose to live in seclusion. However, the Shongqing sect never left the Soaring Dragon ancestral planet. Among the three great Daoist sects, the Shongqing sect and the Guangqing Immortal sect were undoubtedly the luckiest. They had both avoided the calamity of annihilation and successfully went into seclusion. They still had the chance to rise again. Clang! Suddenly, a melodious bell rang in the small world of Guangqing. In a forest more than 30 miles away from Guangyuan City, Li Mengyaro, who was standing on top of a tree, couldn't help but be startled when she heard the sound of the bell. The bell of Guangyuan City would usually not ring. But once the bell rang, it meant that something big had happened. The Guangqing Immortal sect was summoning the upper echelons. Feng'er, we're going back. Li Mengyaro jumped down from the tree. Yes, master. The white-robed youth hurriedly rushed over from afar. Li Mengyaro looked at her disciple and felt very gratified. Yi Feng had only cultivated for a dozen years and his cultivation had already reached the half-immortal realm. He was only half a step away from becoming an immortal. With such a cultivation speed, even in the outside world, he could be called a genius. Within the younger generation of the Guangqing Immortal sect, Yi Feng's cultivation base was the highest. As for him, he was Li Mengyao's second disciple. Li Mengyaro still had a first disciple. At this time, all the people in Guangyuan City were alarmed by the ringing of the bell. I heard that the Supreme Elder has returned. I wonder what news the Grand Elder has brought back. We've been living in seclusion for a long time. Are we going to go out? In Guangyuan City, countless disciples of the Guangqing Immortal sect were extremely excited. Although the Guangqing Immortal world was good, it was not a real world after all. Here, they were just struggling at death's door. For the entire sect, there was no future for them to hide here. Because of the law of heaven and earth, it was impossible for an invincible expert to be born in this small world. At this time, in the Guangyuan City's City Lord Mansion, the Guangqing Immortal sect's sect leader was sitting on the throne in the middle. A group of elders were sitting on both sides. The core disciples of the sect were standing behind the group of elders. Martial uncle, tell everyone about what you've seen and heard outside, the Guangqing Immortal sect's sect leader, Shongqing, said to a white-haired old man beside him. The current Guangqing Immortal sect's sect leader was no longer the sect leader of the past. The sect leader of the past had passed away many years ago. The current sect leader was the new sect leader of the Guangqing Immortal sect 100 years ago. This sect leader's name was Lu Shongqing, also known as Shongqing sect leader. The supreme elder's name was Yu Mu. He was the person with the highest seniority in the Guangqing Immortal sect. Moreover, supreme elder Yu Mu's cultivation was also the highest in the Guangqing Immortal sect. He had already reached the pinnacle of the Holy Venerate and was only one step away from becoming a quasi-supreme. The outside world has changed drastically this time. Even the heavenly punishment has disappeared, and supreme supremes can be born. No one could have imagined the person who caused this. Supreme Elder Yu Mu paused for a moment. Martial uncle, who is that person? Shongqing sect's sect leader asked anxiously. That person is Ji Yu Fei from the Taishan sect who was seen as trash by others. Yu Mu said. Ji Yu Fei? At this time, Li Mengyaro walked out of the hall. Greetings, sect leader. Li Mengyaro bowed to the sect leader who was sitting on the throne. Junior sister, please sit. Shongqing sect's sect leader said hurriedly. Martial uncle, do you have any news about Ji Yu Fei? Li Mengyaro was not in a hurry to sit. Instead, she looked at Supreme Elder Yu Mu. You were friends with Ji Yu Fei back then. That makes things easier. When Supreme Elder Yu Mu saw Li Mengyaro, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. This was definitely a rare opportunity. If things went well, the Guangqing Immortal Sect could return to the soaring dragon ancestral planet. Well, listen to me carefully. Supreme Elder Yu Mu stroked his beard and smiled. Then, he told her what he had seen and heard outside. After speaking for more than 2 hours, Grand Elder Yu Mu finally finished talking about what he had seen and heard outside. This time, Supreme Elder Yu Mu went to many places. The 5 ancestral planets of the human realm could freely travel between, so he naturally returned to the soaring dragon ancestral planet. Right now, the human realm was full of legends about Ji Fei. Things like leveling the land of despair, destroying the demon cave, massacring everyone, aspiring to become a supreme, and so on. In particular, he even took away the heavenly punishment, allowing supremes to come to the human realm. Everything that Ji Fei had done could shock the entire human realm. Yu Mu even made a trip back to the Eastern Domain. He discovered that the Supreme Mystery Sect had already been rebuilt, and it had become a great power in the Eastern Domain. The 3 great Tao sects had been on the same side for countless years. Because Supreme Mystery Sect had Ji Fei as their backer, no one dared to provoke them. However, since they were both Tao sects, Ji Fei should also be Guangqing Immortal Sect's backer. I didn't expect Ji Fei to, even in her dreams. Li Mengyao never imagined that Ji Fei would have such supreme achievements. Was he still that despicable and shameless guy in the virtual sky world? Junior sister, this time, I need you to go. The sect master of Shongqing said to Li Mengyao earnestly. This. Chapter 4651. There were quite a few outer realms on Buzhou ancestral planet. After all, once one reached the sacred level, one would be able to establish a stable little world. Of course, not even a quasi-supremacy could establish a real great world. Only an extreme supremacy could create a great world and rule over a part of the world. Guangqing Little World was not an impressive little world on Buzhou ancestral planet, but it was now the temporary home of the Guangqing Immortal Sect. However, the higher-ups of the Guangqing Celestial Sect were not willing to hide in this small world. Therefore, the Guangqing Immortal Sect sent Supreme Elder Yu Mu out of the Guangqing small world to investigate the outside world. This Supreme Elder Yu Mu's trip was not in vain. The people of Guangqing Immortal Sect would never have thought that a mere disciple of the Taishan sect would become an unparalleled expert who could look down on the world. Soon, the sect master of Guangqing Immortal Sect, Lu Shangqing, decided to send Li Mengyao to see Ji Fei. In the entire Guangqing Immortal Sect, Li Mengyao was the only one who had any relationship with Ji Fei. However, just as Li Mengyao was about to leave Guangqing Small World with her 2 disciples, the exit of Guangqing Small World was blocked. Someone was attacking the Guangqing Little World. The Ziyun clan and the Golden Divine clan were on Buzhou ancestral planet. These 2 clans had once produced extreme supremacies and were extremely powerful. However, the faction attacking the Guangqing Little World was not these 2 clans, but another faction that had risen in the past 1,000 years. This faction was called the Six Ways Alliance. It was an alliance of the 6 great factions on Buzhou ancestral planet, which was why it was called the Six Ways Alliance. The leader of the Six Ways Alliance was a quasi-supremacy. The Six Ways Alliance did not dare to provoke the Golden Divine clan and the Ziyun clan, but they dared to provoke other factions. In the past few centuries, the Six Ways Alliance had annexed countless factions. At this time, the Six Ways Alliance had begun to target the outer realms. What should we do? The people of Guangqing Little World were panicking. How could the tiny Guangqing Immortal Sect be a match for the Six Ways Alliance? This is a calamity. The head of the Guangqing Immortal Sect, Lu Shangqing, sighed. Just as the Guangqing Immortal Sect was about to climb up to Ji Fei, who would have thought that extreme joy would turn into sorrow? The Six Dao's Alliance came knocking on their door. What should they do? While the Broad Accomplishment Immortal Sect was trapped in the small world by the Six Ways Alliance, Ji Changkong was standing outside the Cloud Arrival Inn in the Purple Myrtle Ancestral Star's sovereign city. After He Tian returned from the heavenly realm, he immediately went into seclusion in the flying immortal land. The current Ji Changkong could be said to be weak. Without He Tian's help, he would not be able to deal with Emperor Ji. Therefore, he could only find people to help him. The informants he had planted in Unique City were all over the city. In fact, when Ji Yufei's family had just moved into the inn, his informants had already discovered Ji Yufei's family. Ji Changkong was not stupid. He had already drawn Ji Yufei's appearance and sent it to his subordinates. This way, as long as Ji Yufei appeared in the purple myrtle ancestral star, he would be the first to know. If he could get his master to help, Emperor Ji would be like a chicken or a dog, unable to withstand a single blow. The fat shopkeeper arrived outside Ji Yufei's room and asked carefully, "Sir, that person has already been waiting outside for 12 hours. Do you want to meet him? Let him continue standing there." Ji Yufei said indifferently. The fat shopkeeper had no choice. He hesitated for a moment and did not say anything else. He turned and left. He had personally seen this fellow called Ji Yufei's daughter easily kill a quasi-supreme. As her father, wouldn't Ji Yufei be even stronger? Ji Changkong stood there for an entire day. Ji Yufei did not move at all. Ji Changkong did not leave. He seemed to have steeled his heart to meet Ji Yufei. If he did not see him, he would not leave. Is that fellow Ji Changkong stupid? Ji Xiaohua, who received the news, was stunned. Who was the other party? He actually wanted Ji Changkong to wait outside. One must know that Ji Changkong was someone who dared to go against Emperor Ji. Ji Xiaohua was very curious. Who was this person that Ji Changkong would lower himself to personally invite? No one would have thought that Ji Changkong had been standing outside the inn for 3 days and 3 nights. He did not sleep, rest, eat, or drink. Of course, with Ji Changkong's cultivation, not eating for 1 or 2 years would not be a problem. Ji Yufei still did not summon Ji Changkong. Ji Changkong did not seem to be angry. He continued to stand outside obediently. Very soon, the news of Ji Changkong standing outside spread throughout the entire Unique City. It even reached the Ji clan's ancestral lands, shocking everyone in the Ji clan. That fellow appeared in Unique City. In a courtyard of the Ji clan's ancestral land, there were a few people sitting around a stone table under a big tree. They were eating and drinking. "I heard that he is seeking an audience with a big shot." A white-robed youth sneered. "Do you know who he is seeking an audience with?" Emperor Ji asked. "No idea." The others shook their heads. "If you don't know, why aren't you sending people to investigate?" Emperor Ji said in a bad mood. "These people were all a bunch of idiots. I heard that He Tian is in seclusion somewhere. Only Ji Changkong is left. Won't it be easy to deal with him?" The white-robed youth said with a smile. "Yes. Think of a way to kill him." Emperor Ji's expression turned gloomy. "Didn't we already make a move?" The white-robed youth, Ji Yuan, smiled. "That's right, he was Ji Yuan, the Ji clan's Unique City's city lord. This fellow should have been assassinated, but he actually appeared in Emperor Ji's courtyard. They set up a trap to lure Ji Changkong into taking the bait. Now, Ji Changkong took the bait. However, the sudden appearance of that big shot caught Emperor Ji and the others off guard. They had planned everything, but in the end, they didn't expect this. Emperor Ji and the others were very careful. Before they knew who that big shot was, they wouldn't make a move. Ji Yuan faked his death, but Ji Long was really dead. Since Ji Changkong appeared in Unique City, he had to take the blame even if he didn't want to. Let's shift the blame to Ji Changkong first. After discussing for a long time, Emperor Ji made this decision. Who cares who that big shot is? Can he meddle in my clan's internal affairs? That's right. Everyone thought it was feasible. Soon, Emperor Ji issued the order. The people of Unique City started to move. After Ji Changkong stood outside the inn for 10 days, on the evening of the 11th day, Ji Yufei finally summoned Ji Changkong. At this time, a piece of news spread in Unique City. The Unique City Lord, Ji Yuan, and Vice City Lord, Ji Long, were killed by Ji Changkong. Chapter 4652. Ji Changkong killed Ji Yuan and Ji Long? It can't be, he dares. Why not? Isn't he the sworn enemy of the Ji clan's clan head, Emperor Ji? That's true. In Unique City, in the streets and alleys, tea houses and restaurants, as long as there were cultivators, Everyone was talking about the death of Unique City's City Lord Ji Yuan and Deputy City Lord Ji Long. It had to be said that Emperor Ji's methods were truly brilliant. He did this to tarnish Ji Changkong's reputation while standing on the moral high ground. This way, the Ji clan naturally would not allow a fellow who killed innocent people to be the clan head. Emperor Ji would be able to hold the position of clan head, and Ji Changkong would have no chance. He wanted to use the invisible knife of public opinion to kill Ji Changkong. However, Ji Changkong seemed to have fallen for it. He should not have appeared in Unique City at this time. Now that he appeared, even if he had 10 mouths, he would not be able to clear his name. At this sensitive time, Ji Changkong should not have appeared in Unique City. However, he just had to appear in Unique City and wait outside the Yunlai Inn for 10 days. To be able to make Ji Changkong wait for 10 days, he must be an incredible person. Everyone was guessing who the person in the inn was. Emperor Ji was also very curious. He had managed the Ji clan for close to 10,000 years, and the entire ancestral Myrtle Star was filled with his eyes. Very quickly, a portrait was delivered to Emperor Ji. When Emperor Ji saw the portrait, he was completely stunned. In the courtyard where Emperor Ji was, he was sitting under a tree with a pale face. What should I do? What should I do? It's actually him. Emperor Ji panicked for a moment. This high and mighty Ji clan head was actually panicking, not knowing what to do. This was definitely something that rarely happened in the past 10,000 years. Just at this moment, several beams of divine light descended from the sky, directly landing in the courtyard. The divine light dissipated, and 5 figures appeared. Lord Clan Head, why did you summon us so urgently? A tall and sturdy old man in grey robes sat opposite Emperor Ji and said loudly. That's right, what's the urgent matter? Another middle-aged man with a pale face frowned. Since Emperor Ji had sent them an urgent talisman, asking them to rush back to the ancestral land of the Ji clan immediately. Even the Ji clan's patriarch couldn't easily use a Dao talisman of that level because it could only be used when the clan was on the brink of life and death. This talisman could gather the power of the entire Ji clan. Everyone in the Ji clan had to listen to it unconditionally. These 5 elders of the Ji clan were very important in the Ji clan. Every one of them was an overlord and they guarded the 5 territories for the Ji clan. The 5 grand elders were all high officials of the border. And most importantly, these 5 founding elders all supported Emperor Ji. Emperor Ji's methods were truly brilliant, and in these 10,000 years, he had managed the Ji clan in an orderly manner. The 5 elders naturally didn't want the Ji clan to fall into chaos. A united Ji clan is the strongest Ji clan. Ji Changkong's return was a challenge to the entire Ji clan. At this moment, the 5 elders all looked at Empress Ji. Looks like I have to abdicate. Emperor Ji sighed. What? When the 5 grand elders heard this, they were all shocked. Abdicate? What the hell is this? The position of the Ji clan's clan head wasn't something that could be abdicated so easily. Ji Changkong is very capable. Empress Ji said helplessly. Clan head, what did you say? You want to give the position of clan head to Ji Changkong? How can this be? The 5 elders immediately shook their heads. There were many people in the Ji clan who supported Ji Changkong, but the 5 elders all felt that Empress Ji was more suitable to be the clan head. Look. Empress Ji directly handed the portrait to one of the 5 elders, Ji Wutian. Who is this? Ji Wutian took the portrait and looked at it. Suddenly, his entire body trembled, and the portrait in his hand almost fell to the ground. He quickly and carefully picked up the portrait. Boss, what's wrong? Ji Wufeng, one of the 5 elders, looked at the portrait in Ji Wutian's hand and was so frightened that he almost fell to the ground. It's him, he came. What should we do? Ji Wufeng stuttered. What else can we do? Cancel all the operations against Ji Changkong and send people to probe that person's attitude. Ji Wutian said with a grave expression. That's right, that person's attitude is very important. Ji Wufeng forced himself to calm down. At this time, the other elders also knew who the person in the portrait was. The 5 elders' attitudes instantly changed 180 degrees. Empress Ji was also helpless. If that person came, let alone the Ji clan, There was no one in the entire crepe myrtle ancestral star who could contend against that person. Who would become the clan head of the G clan would be decided with just a word from that person. Let's do it this way. Empress G sighed. The 5 elders did not return to their fief and stayed in the G clan's ancestral land. Although the G clan was powerful and had once produced the supreme ancestor of the G clan had disappeared for countless years. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Without a supreme overseeing the human realm, the crepe myrtle ancestral star could be said to be in imminent danger. The crepe myrtle ancestral star was a fat piece of meat in the eyes of those big shot. However, everyone knew the relationship between He Tian and Ji Yufei. The two were close brothers, and He Tian and Ji Changkong had a very good relationship. They had gone through life and death together all these years. In fact, not many people in the crepe myrtle ancestral star knew that Ji Yufei was Ji Changkong's master. However, Empress Ji had already investigated Ji Changkong's background. At this time, in a high-class room of the unique city's Yunlai Inn, Ji Changkong directly laid down at Ji Yufei's feet. Ji Changkong greets Master. May Master live for 10,000 autumns and unify the heavens. After Ji Changkong finished speaking, he lowered his head and did not move. The heavens are too small. Ji Yufei laid down on a comfortable leather chair, somewhat dispirited. His gaze was no longer on the heavens. Only the eternal world was the world of the strong that he yearned for. When Ji Changkong heard this, he was puzzled. Did you come to see me for something? Ji Yufei looked at Ji Changkong, who was lying on the ground, respectfully and asked. Master, I wish to be the Ji clan's clan head. I hope Master can grant me this wish. Ji Changkong knew that this was a rare opportunity. What other great matters do I have? You're only this much. Sigh, all right. Since you called me Master, you can do whatever you want to do. Ji Yufei said impatiently. Many thanks, Master. Ji Changkong was both surprised and happy. You may leave. Ji Yufei waved his hand and said. Master, this lowly one still has something to report. Ji Changkong said. Speak. Ji Yufei said indifferently. Master, this lowly one has sent people to other ancestral planets to search for news of the 3 great Daoist sects. Not long ago, there was finally good news. Ji Changkong said carefully. What? Chapter 4653. Ji Changkong actually found the Guangqing Immortal Sect or the Shongqing Sect. When Ji Yufei thought of this, he was finally moved. When he reached the Eternal Realm, he had used his divine sense to scan the entire mortal world, but he couldn't find the location of these 2 sects. Ji Changkong actually found them. At this moment, Ji Changkong carefully took out a jade strip and handed it to Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei waved his hand and the jade strip in Ji Changkong's hand landed in his hand. He separated a strand of his spiritual will to sense the jade strip. Ancestral Star Buzhou, Guangqing Small World. Ji Yufei's eyes lit up. Guangqing Immortal Sect, it's actually Guangqing Immortal Sect. How did you find them? Ji Yuling, who had been silent all this while, suddenly asked. She had also searched for these 2 sects before, but there was no news. She didn't expect Ji Changkong to find Guangqing Immortal Sect. Not long ago, someone came to Ancestral Star Crepe Myrtle. I paid some attention and found something wrong with this person. At first, I thought it was someone sent by Empress Ji. Unexpectedly, after interrogating that person, I found out that this person was actually Guangqing Immortal Sect's Grand Elder, Yu Mu. Yu Mu? Ji Yufei frowned. He really didn't have any impression of this so-called Grand Elder of Guangqing Immortal Sect. Actually, he wasn't familiar with many people in Guangqing Immortal Sect. Li Mengyaro was one, Old Freak Shenyuan was another. However, Old Freak Shenyuan had died a long time ago. He really didn't have any impression of this Yu Mu. This fella was probably just a small character in Guangqing Immortal Sect. Actually, Ji Yufei's guess was right. Guangqing Immortal Sect paid a huge price to move to Ancestral Star Buzhou. Some of the sect's important figures had died. To preserve their strength and to ensure that Guangqing Immortal Sect's foundation could be passed down, Guangqing Immortal Sect had no choice but to retreat to Guangqing Small World. You've done well. Ji Yufei returned the jade strip to Ji Changkong and sent a strand of spiritual will into it. There's a strand of my spiritual will incarnation here. When you're in danger, just crush this jade strip and it will save your life. Ji Yufei said. Thank you, Master. Ji Changkong was both surprised and happy. Right now, he was already a quasi-prime, but he still could not see the depths of his master. His master was definitely an extreme Dao prime. What was sealed in this jade slip was definitely the incarnation of an extreme Dao supreme being. Alright, you can leave now. I'll go see He Tian and then leave Ancestral Crepe Myrtle Star. Ji Yufei said. Yes, Master. Ji Changkong did not dare to linger and quickly left the room. The fat shopkeeper, who had been waiting outside the door, finally knew Ji Yufei's identity. This person was actually Ji Changkong's legendary omnipotent master. The fat shopkeeper was quite frightened. Previously, Ji Long dared to provoke this malefic star. His death was not unjust, absolutely not. Wait here for me. After saying that, Ji Yufei disappeared into the void. Yang and Ji Yuling looked at each other and smiled. It seemed that they would have to make a trip to Ancestral Planet. He Tian's place of seclusion was the mysterious and unfathomable land of flying immortals. On Ancestral Planet, the land of flying immortals was a legendary secret realm with great fortune. It was very difficult to enter such a secret realm. Back then, He Tian and Ji Changkong had only entered the land of flying immortals by chance and were trapped inside. By the time they came out, many years had already passed. But now, even though they were already quasi-supremes, it would still take them some time to enter the land of flying immortals. After He Tian snatched a great Dao Golden Lotus from the Chaos Immortal Mansion world, he directly returned to Ancestral Planet and entered the land of flying immortals for seclusion. To He Tian, there was no place more suitable for seclusion than the land of flying immortals. It was absolutely safe here. The Flying Immortals city was near the land of flying immortals. The city lord, the Flying Immortals, was still the Flying Immortals king, Ji Xuanji. However, his cultivation had already broken through to the sacred realm, so his name had been changed to Sacred King Feixian. The Sacred King Feixian lived a happy life. In his own city, he could do whatever he wanted. Even the Ji clan's patriarch, Emperor Ji, could not control him. However, ever since He Tian came to the land of flying immortals, the Sacred King Feixian's troubles multiplied. He was always on tenterhooks, afraid that something bad would happen. Life. Just as the Sacred King Feixian, Ji Xuanji, was lying on a rattan chair in the courtyard and basking in the sun, he suddenly noticed a figure silently appearing in the sky above his city lord mansion. This is. Ji Xuanji's shock was no small matter. The person in the sky had also noticed him. In the next moment, the person in the sky disappeared into the void. Just when Ji Xuanji thought that the person had left and was feeling happy, he suddenly realized that there was another person beside him. How is this possible? Ji Xuanji's shock was no small matter. The other party had already arrived beside him, but he did not notice in time. The other party's cultivation was many times higher than his. Do you know where the entrance to the land of flying immortals is? Ji Yufei asked indifferently. He had arrived in the vicinity of the land of ascension, but sadly, he could not find the entrance to the land of ascension. However, he knew that the land of flying immortals was nearby. Sir, I do not know where the entrance to the land of flying immortals is. Ji Xuanji said carefully. Ji Yufei could not help but frown when he heard this. It seemed that entering this secret realm was not going to be easy at all. Swoosh. Ji Yufei's figure disappeared into the void. When he reappeared, he was already in the sky above the land of flying immortals. He sat cross-legged in the void and used his divine ability to sense the surroundings. This time, he directly used the power of an eternal mark. So it's here. Ji Yufei suddenly stood up and disappeared into the void with a sway of his body. When he reappeared, he knew that he had entered a secret realm. It was a small world with a sun, moon, and stars, as well as day and night. At the center of this small world was a city. It was a huge city, but it was empty. There was not a single person inside. At this moment, He Tian was sitting on an altar in the square of the huge city. Divine hymns of the great Tao emanated from his body, as if a supreme being was giving a sermon. Not bad. Ji Yufei could not help but nod when he saw this. He Tian's cultivation had accumulated enough, and the great Tao Golden Lotus was like a fuse that directly detonated He Tian's cultivation. It was only a matter of time before He Tian entered the extreme grade. He immediately left after seeing He Tian, unwilling to disturb He Tian. Chapter 46-54. Ever since Ji Yufei's cultivation base recovered to the eternal realm, there was no place in the myriad heavens that he couldn't go if he wanted to. Moreover, he also mastered the wheel of the heavens. In theory, he could use the wheel of the heavens to travel freely in the myriad heavens. The flying immortal land was naturally not a problem for him. The flying immortal land was not a simple place. The laws of heaven and earth were more complete than the outside. It was the best choice for He Tian to break through to the extreme realm in the flying immortal land. Moreover, it was relatively easier to break through to the extreme realm in the human realm than in other places. Because when Ji Yufei was mending the heavenly Tao, it was equivalent to refining the heavenly Tao of the human realm again. Almost all of the heavenly Tao imprints left behind by the past experts who had undergone the extreme Tao heavenly tribulation were refined by him. After seeing that He Tian was fine, Ji Yufei left the flying immortal land. He directly went to the place where the ancestral earth vein was located. He sat cross-legged on the peak of the sacred mountain and took out the wheel of the heavens. On the wheel of the heavens, fine cracks were still very obvious. This supreme Tao artifact of the ancestral realm was still flawed. This supreme Tao artifact was an eternal Tao artifact. Before Ji Yufei became an eternal sovereign, he did not have the ability to repair this supreme treasure. But it was different now. He directly activated the wheel of the heavens and earth and directly drew the 9 heavenly true fire to the peak of the sacred mountain to repair the wheel of the heavens. Soon, the cracks on the wheel of the heavens and earth that were thrown into the furnace of heaven and earth gradually disappeared. What is that? When Ji Yufei refined the weapon on the top of the sacred mountain and drew the 9 heavenly true fire, there was a phenomenon of heaven and earth. 9 colored divine fire descended from the sky and landed on the mountain top. The cultivators who were cultivating near the sacred mountain were immediately alarmed. "There's someone on the peak," a quasi-supreme being expert cried out in alarm. The peak of the sacred mountain was not a place that could be reached just because one wanted to. The peak of the sacred mountain was protected by all kinds of restrictive spells set up by the experts of the past. If one were to activate these restrictive spells, even if they didn't die, they would lose half their lives. "Awesome, who is that person?" someone exclaimed. "Is that him?" An elder of the Ji clan happened to be in seclusion nearby. When he saw the figure on the peak of the Saint Mountain, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He immediately turned around and left. Soon, the news that Ji Yufei was in Ziwei Holy Mountain spread. One after another, mysterious and powerful figures appeared near Ziwei Sacred Mountain. Boom! More than 6 hours later, a shocking aura suddenly erupted from the summit of Ziwei Sacred Mountain. Under this aura, even an extreme-grade sovereign would feel uneasy. Finally, the heaven and earth furnace had disappeared, and the universal world wheel was floating in the air. This was the flawless universal world wheel, and it was giving off a terrifying aura. This was an eternal-level aura, and a wisp of it could even suppress the heavenly Tao. Ji Yufei waved his hand and kept the all-heavens world wheel in the air. Only then did the big shots near the Ziwei Sacred Mountain heave a sigh of relief. When they came back to their senses, they found that Ji Yufei had already disappeared. "What took you so long?" Yang asked when they returned to the inn. "I went to Ziwei Sacred Mountain and repaired the all-heavens world wheel," Ji Yufei said. "Repaired the all-heavens world wheel?" Yang couldn't help but rejoice when she heard this. She had long wanted to see other worlds. "Father, are we leaving now?" Ji Yuling asked. "Yes. Let's go to Ancestral Star Buzhou first." As Ji Yufei spoke, he waved his sleeve and a ball of eternal light immediately enveloped his family. In the next moment, his family instantly disappeared into the void. Ziwei Ancestral Star was billions of miles away from Ancestral Star Buzhou, but with just a thought, Ji Fei brought Yang and Ji Ling to the starry sky outside of ancestral star Buzhou. Just as Ji Fei left Ziwei ancestral star, Ji Changkong made his move. After learning of Ji Fei's attitude from Ji Fei, he directly returned to the ancestral ground and gathered all the upper echelons of the Ji clan. In the ancestral hall, in front of everyone, he wanted Emperor Ji to pass the position of clan leader to him. The 5 great elders of the Ji clan, who had originally supported Emperor Ji, suddenly had a 180-degree change in their attitudes. They actually supported Ji Changkong. Since Ji Changkong had obtained the support of the 5 great elders, the others naturally didn't dare to object. Moreover, Emperor Ji had no choice but to lower his head because Ji Fei was on Ziwei ancestral star. With Ji Fei here, the entire Ji clan was nothing in Ji Fei's eyes. If Ji Fei wanted to exterminate the Ji clan, he didn't even need to do anything. There would naturally be people who would do it for him. Although Emperor Ji was unwilling, he had no choice but to abdicate. Ji Changkong directly sent Emperor Ji to guard the tombs of his ancestors, never to return. The feeling of ruthlessly trampling Emperor Ji under his feet was simply too satisfying. In just a little more than a day, the entire Ziwei ancestral star changed. At this time, in the depths of the human realm, on a lifeless planet, a bare-chested middle-aged fatty was undergoing tribulation. Boundless tribulation lightning engulfed the entire planet. A terrifying aura of destruction spread in all directions, causing the entire heavenly Tao to tremble. Father, you must succeed. On another planet in the distance, a fatty stood on a boulder and looked at the middle-aged man who was undergoing his tribulation. That person was none other than Ji Yuzhong. The person watching Ji Yuzhong's tribulation from the side was his precious son, Ji Xiaofeng. The extreme Tao heavenly tribulation caused a huge commotion. All the experts in the human realm could feel the aura of the tribulation. Many powerful beings were watching from the side. While Ji Yuzhong was undergoing tribulation, on Ziwei ancestral star, He Tian had also attracted the extreme Tao heavenly tribulation. At this time, Ji Fei had already brought Yang and the others to the southern region of Buzhou ancestral star. At this time, 6 Dao's alliance was attacking Guangcheng Small World. The entrance to Guangcheng Small World was in a valley. This valley looked like a valley filled with rocks. At this time, the entire valley was filled with people. Only one elder from 6 Dao's alliance came. The others were all cultivators of the younger generation from 6 Dao's alliance. They were tempering their disciples. When Ji Fei sensed all this, he was very displeased. The consequences would be dire. Ji Ling directly landed outside the valley's entrance. Who goes there? 2 people from 6 Dao's alliance jumped out and blocked Ji Ling's path. With just a thought from Ji Ling, the 2 of them fell to the ground without a sound. She directly walked into the valley. Everywhere she passed, the disciples of 6 Dao's alliance fell to the ground, silently dying. Chapter 4655. On the Buzhou ancestral planet, the Golden Divine clan had gone into seclusion, and the Ziyun clan had announced their seclusion. The 6 Ways alliance had seized the opportunity to rise and conquer the entire Buzhou ancestral planet. The 6 Ways alliance's fame was unrivaled in the entire ancestral Buzhou star. However, the 6 Ways alliance master was no fool. He did not touch the Golden Divine clan and the Ziyun clan. These 2 forces had existed for countless years and were great clans that had produced extreme grade sovereigns in the past. Moreover, the Golden Divine clan and the Ziyun clan had gone into seclusion because they had obtained a great fortune in the Chaos Immortal Abode. The Golden Goddess had gone into seclusion after returning from the Chaos Immortal Abode. The Ziyun siblings had also returned to the Ziyun clan. The Ziyun clan had immediately announced their seclusion. Although the 2 superpowers on the Buzhou ancestral planet did not care about worldly affairs, they had many businesses that needed to be taken care of. The 6 Ways Alliance master was well aware of the 6 Ways Alliance's strength, so he did not dare to touch the 2 clans. However, he did not dare to touch the 2 clans, and he did not care about the other cultivation forces. Hence, the 6 Ways Alliance began to attack the outer realms in an attempt to conquer all the outer realms on the Buzhou ancestral planet. Before the 6 Ways Alliance attacked the Guangcheng Small World, one of the outer realms had already been conquered by the Six Ways Alliance. All who resisted were killed. The Six Ways Alliance had directly taken over the small world. Now, it was the Guangcheng small world's turn. Fortunately, the entrance to the Guangcheng small world was a little special. It only allowed cultivators below the quasi-saint level to enter and exit. Even quasi-sovereigns did not dare to barge into the Guangcheng small world. Once the passage collapsed, even quasi-sovereigns would be injured. The most terrifying thing was that they would be swept into the endless chaos and would never be able to find their way back. The Six Ways Alliance could only send those below the quasi-saint level to attack the Guangcheng small world. Meanwhile, in the valley, Elder Wn Qian of the Six Ways Alliance was very depressed. It was already the third day. They had been attacking the small world for 3 days and 3 nights without breaking through. In the depths of the valley, a gate had long been destroyed. Behind the gate was a long passageway. Behind the passageway was Guangcheng's small world. In front of the stone door, there were corpses everywhere. Within the stone door, there were also many corpses. Among these corpses, there were disciples of the Six Daos Alliance, and there were also disciples of the Guangcheng Immortal Sect. The people from the Six Ways Alliance were unable to break in, but the people from Guangcheng's pocket world were also unable to break out. The two forces were in a stalemate. Just then, Ji Yufei's family arrived. Ji Yuling charged straight into the valley. "Little fellow, you're courting death." Wn Qian took a step forward and directly punched towards Ji Yuling. 9 dragon shadows rushed out from his fist and pounced towards Ji Yuling. Ji Yuling sneered. In the next moment, she also threw out a punch. However, Ji Yuling's punch did not contain any power. It was like a punch thrown by an ordinary person. The corner of Wn Gan's lips curled up, revealing a trace of disdain. Bam! Catcher! 2 fists instantly collided. In the next moment, Wn Gan's expression froze. He only felt a pain in his right hand. After that, he could no longer feel his right hand. Wn Gan hurriedly lowered his head and was instantly scared out of his wits. He saw that his entire arm had disappeared. It was completely clean. Not a single drop of blood or piece of flesh could be seen. Wn Gan stared at Ji Yuling viciously. If looks could kill, Ji Yuling would have been killed by Wn Gan countless times over. The valley was completely silent. All the people from the Six Ways Alliance stared at Ji Yuling and Wn Gan with their mouths agape. "Now, who's the reckless one?" Ji Yuling laughed. "Lord, please spare me." Wn Gan immediately cowered. He forcefully endured the pain of losing his arm and knelt on the ground, begging Ji Yuling not to kill him. "Where's your backbone? You're still a sage after all." Ji Yuling was truly speechless. "You're about to lose your life. What backbone do you have?" Although Wn Gan was ashamed, he was more worried about his little life. Something like backbone, if he could continue living, he would definitely be the person with the most backbone in this world. At this moment, the hundreds of people from the Six Ways Alliance in the valley were in an uproar. Their elder Wn Gan had actually fallen to the point where he was begging for his life. "Who are you people exactly? Why are you attacking this place?" Ji Yuling asked. She had just arrived at ancestral Star Buzhou and did not know what was going on. However, since these people were attacking the small world of the Guangcheng Immortal Sect, they were definitely enemies of the Guangcheng Immortal Sect. Since they were enemies, Ji Yuling would not show any mercy. "We're from the Six Ways Alliance." Wn Gan did not even dare to fart as he obediently revealed his background. Six Ways Alliance. Ji Yuling couldn't help but frown when she heard this. This name was not unfamiliar to her. "Get your Six Ways Alliance leader to scram over here to see me," Ji Yuling said to Wn Gan. Yes. Wn Qian hastily took out an information transmission talisman and sent a strand of his divine sense into the talisman, sending it back to the Six Daos Alliance's headquarters. "What is this Wn Gan doing? He actually called me over. Could it be that he can't even defeat a small Guangcheng Immortal Sect?" A voice came from the main altar of the Six Ways Alliance. The Six Ways Alliance leader did not make a move. He only sent out another elder. This elder was called Yuan Chen, and his cultivation base had already reached the peak of the Holy Venerate. Yuan Chen was only half a step away from successfully entering the quasi-supremacy realm. If the two of you can't take down the Guangqing immortal sect even after joining hands, there's no need for the two of you to come back. I don't raise trash. The Six Ways Alliance leader said coldly. Yes, Lord Alliance leader. Yuan Chen received the order and rushed towards the territory of the Guangqing immortal sect. When Yuan Chen arrived nearby and entered the valley, he felt unwell. He saw the most unbelievable scene. The usually arrogant Wen Gan was now lying at the feet of someone. His right arm was missing. What's going on? Yuan Chen immediately turned around and wanted to leave. However, when he turned around, he realized that two people had already blocked his way. These two people were Ji Yufei and Yang Scram. Yuan Chen roared angrily and sent a palm strike at Ji Yufei and Yang The powerful palm strike instantly enveloped the two of them. Ji Yufei smiled. With a snap of his fingers, all of Yuan Chen's attacks missed. Yuan Chen was sent flying and smashed into the valley. Chapter 46-56. Ancestral Buzhou Star. Outside the entrance to Guangqing's small world, all the disciples of the Six Ways Alliance were dumbfounded. The two great elders, who were usually high and mighty, were actually like dead dogs, lying on the ground, shivering, terrified to the extreme. Lord, don't kill us. The elders of the Six Ways Alliance, Wen Gan and Yuan Chen, were actually begging the three young-looking men to spare their lives. They were as cowardly as they could be. The disciples of the Six Ways Alliance in the valley felt embarrassed when they saw their elders acting so cowardly. What's going on? Why are we attacking Guangqing's small world? Ji Yufei looked at the two fellows at his feet and asked calmly. Replying to Lord, this is Lord Alliance head's decision. Wan Gan immediately pushed the blame to Six Ways Alliance head. There was no difficulty in pushing the blame. That's right. Wherever Lord Alliance head tells us to attack, we can only obey. Yuan Chen added on from the side. I don't want to kill anyone today. Bring your men and scram. Go back and tell your Lord Alliance head to stop having any ideas about Guangqing immortal sect. Ji Yufei waved his hand impatiently. Thank you, Lord, for sparing our lives. Thank you, Lord, for sparing our lives. Wen Gan and Yuan Chen were both shocked and overjoyed. At least they didn't have to die. They hurriedly led their subordinates and retreated dejectedly. They were afraid that Ji Yufei would change his mind. Soon, Ji Yufei and his family were the only ones left in the valley. No one else could be seen. At this moment, a figure walked out from a stone passage in the depths of the valley. Ji Yufei, is it really you? That person rushed over excitedly when she saw Ji Yufei. When she saw Yang and Ji Yuling beside Ji Yufei, she stopped in front of Ji Yufei. Li Mengyao? Ji Yufei was surprised and overjoyed when he saw the lady. Li Mengyao of the Guangqing immortal sect was quite famous in the eastern region of the soaring dragon ancestral star. When he saw Li Mengyao again, she was still as elegant as before. However, she had a more mature aura, giving off a sense of vicissitudes. Obviously, Li Mengyao had been through a lot. Ji Yufei also saw through Li Mengyao's cultivation with a single glance. Holy Venerable Realm. Father, is she the one you're looking for? Gulling sized up Li Mengyao. She was a sword saint. Compared to her mother, Li Mengyao seemed to have more of a heroic spirit. Father, is this your daughter? Li Mengyao was also looking at Ji Yuling. She was shocked to find out that she couldn't see through Ji Yuling. It was as if the woman in front of her was just an ordinary person. However, she knew that it was impossible for Ji Yufei's daughter to be an ordinary person. There was only one explanation, and that was that Ji Yufei's daughter's cultivation was far above hers. She had never expected Ji Yuling to be an extreme-grade sovereign. Yes, her name is Ji Yuling. Ji Yufei then glanced at Yang beside him and said, "This is my wife, Yang." Oh. Li Mengyao was a little dazed. She didn't think that Ji Yufei was already married. His daughter was already so old, but her cultivation was still above hers. It seemed that she had missed out on a lot of things in this life. After the Guangqing celestial sect moved to Buzhou ancestral star, they hid in the small world of Guangqing to recuperate. They didn't care about what happened outside. When they came out again, the outside world had already changed. "Aren't you going to invite us in?" After finding the Guangqing celestial sect, Ji Yufei breathed a sigh of relief. Taishan sect had been rebuilt among the three great Taoist sects. Now that the Guangqing celestial sect had been found, there was only the Shangqing sect left. He didn't know what happened to Lin Xuer'er back then. Ji Yufei still remembered the scene when Lin Xuer'er broke into Taishan sect. Now, Taishan sect had long been destroyed. Although Li Lingfeng had rebuilt Taishan sect, the Taishan sect of today was no longer the Taishan sect of the past. "Ah, please come with me." Li Mengyaro suddenly came back to her senses. She couldn't help but blush. Then, she turned around and led the way. When they came to the passageway of the stone gate, Li Mengyaro stopped. "This entrance is a bit unusual. Only people below the saint level can enter," Li Mengyaro said with some embarrassment. "It's okay." Ji Yufei could see the truth of this passageway at a glance. This was just a forbidden technique of the extreme path. Moreover, this kind of forbidden technique was a bit incomplete. This kind of forbidden technique couldn't stop a true extreme path supreme. Naturally, it couldn't stop an eternal path supreme like Ji Yufei. As Ji Yufei spoke, he directly walked toward the passageway of the stone gate. Li Mengyaro wanted to stop him, but Ji Yufei had already walked in. Then, Li Mengyaro was dumbfounded. "Nothing. Didn't they say that only creatures below the saint level could enter?" Ji Yuling and Yang Er also walked in. This, Li Mengyaro was completely dumbfounded. She was cold and hurriedly chased after them. Ji Yufei's arrival shocked the entire Guangqing immortal sect. Guangqing immortal sect's sect master Lu Qing personally went to Guangyuan city to welcome him. That night, Lu Shangqing set up a banquet in the Guangyuan city lord's mansion and invited Ji Yufei and his family. At this moment, Ji Yufei realized that the current Guangqing immortal sect was no longer the same. Old monster Shenyuan and the others from back then were no longer around. However, he could still see a few familiar faces. This made Ji Yufei a bit disappointed. However, Lu Shangqing, Yu Mu, and the others were extremely excited. Ji Yufei's thigh was really thick. As long as they hugged him tightly, they would be able to revitalize Guangqing immortal sect. They could almost see the scene of Guangqing immortal sect's rapid rise. While the Guangyuan city in the Guangqing immortal sect's small world was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, the headquarters of the Six Ways Alliance was gloomy and gloomy. "You two pieces of trash still have the face to come back." The Six Ways Alliance master was furious. These two fellows couldn't even deal with a small Guangqing immortal sect. This was really disappointing. "Alliance master, we tried our best and almost lost our lives. Unfortunately, they were too strong. There was nothing we could do." Elder Wn Gan sprawled on the throne in the hall, shivering again. "That's right, Alliance Master. I seriously suspect that the three of them are extreme supremes," Elder Yuan Chen said with a sad face. Just like Wn Gan, he was terrified the moment he returned to the headquarters of the Six Ways Alliance. "Do you think I'm stupid? 3 extreme supremes? Since when did Ancestral Buzhou Star have 3 extreme supremes?" The Six Ways Alliance Master really wanted to slap these two pieces of trash to death. "Alliance Master, why would we dare to lie to you?" Wn Gan said with a trembling voice. "Preposterous. I'm going to personally meet the so-called 3 extreme supremes. If I find out that you're lying to me, you know the consequences." The Six Ways Alliance Master's voice was still echoing in the hall, but his figure had already disappeared. This Six Ways Alliance Master had an impressive background. He was an Extreme Supremes himself. Without reaching the Extreme Supremes, how would he dare to conquer Ancestral Buzhou Star and conquer 2/3 of its territory? In the blink of an eye, Alliance Master Six Ways appeared outside the entrance to Guangqing Pocket World. Chapter 4657. Alliance Leader Six Daos personally took action. He teleported to the stone door deep within the valley of Guangqing's small world. Without hesitation, he rushed into the small world of Guangqing. Rumble. As soon as Alliance Leader 6 Dao's entered Guangqing's small world, an extreme aura erupted from his body. The entire Guangqing small world instantly shook. What's happening? What's wrong? Countless disciples of Guangqing Immortal Sect in Guangyuan City panicked. Some of them fell to the ground. Their legs turned to jelly. At the same time, a cold laugh came from the sky. Then, a huge hand came down from the sky and slammed down on Guangyuan City. The entire Guangyuan City was enveloped by this huge hand. Alliance Leader 6 Dao's was really angry. He wanted to destroy the entire Guangqing Immortal Sect. We're dead. Countless disciples of Guangqing Immortal Sect in the city were scared out of their wits. Some broke down and cried. Some had ashen faces and despair. In the city lord residence, Guangqing Sect leader Lu Shangqing and Li Mengyaro were still calm. With a god like Ji Yufei here, what was there to be afraid of? Would Ji Yufei just watch as the Guangqing Immortal Sect was annihilated in front of him? Of course not. However, when they saw the huge hand coming down from the sky, they were still very nervous. The mighty aura coming down from the sky made their souls tremble. Just as the giant hand in the sky was about to fall on the city, a ball of divine light suddenly emerged and directly enveloped the entire Guangyuan city. Boom! The huge hand came down and slammed on the ball of light. The entire ball of light shook violently. Countless Dao patterns intertwined on the ball of light and blocked the huge hand. What? Seeing this, Alliance Master 6 Dao's was dumbfounded. He felt that the situation was far from good and wanted to flee. However, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked his way. Who are you? Alliance Leader 6 Dao's stared at the lady in white and said coldly. Who are you? The lady in white asked. I'm your grandfather. Go to hell. Alliance Leader 6 Dao's roared. A golden light burst out from his right hand that was aimed at Ji Yuling. In that instant, it was as if the metal elemental energy in the world had been drawn by his unfathomable power, gathering from all directions. Within the surging golden light, countless golden sword shadows were condensed and slashed towards Ji Yuling. The golden divine light lit up the entire small world. In the night sky, tens of thousands of sword shadows gathered together. Those were not true divine swords, but rather, they were condensed from the boundless power of the metal element. They formed a golden sea of swords, and the momentum was extremely great. In Guangyuan City, the faces of everyone who witnessed this scene turned pale with horror. Alliance Master 6 Dao's metal elemental divine ability was domineering. Golden energy waves condensed into countless sword shadows. The sword energy surged forward and the resplendent golden light illuminated the night sky, causing even the stars to pale in comparison. Everyone was shocked by the divine ability displayed by Alliance Master 6 Ways. Everyone's hearts palpitated. TSK, playing with swords in front of me? Ji Yuling laughed. She was a sword sovereign, but she did not intend to compete with Alliance Leader 6 Dao's. Fire Fist. Ji Yuling punched forward. Her move was simple and direct. It was a manifestation of power. Under the endless golden sword light, her figure was huge. How dare you take my metal element sword Qi head-on? You're courting death. Alliance Leader 6 Dao's showed disdain when he saw that Ji Yuling did not retreat. Instead, she counterattacked. However, the next moment, he could not smile anymore. A fire-like aura rushed out from Ji Yuling's fist. The fiery light lit up the world. It was as if a great fire had burned the sky. The glaring flames pounced forward like fire dragons, as if they wanted to incinerate everything in the world. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they charged towards the golden sea of swords. Vast heat waves surged out in all directions. Countless disciples of Guangyuan City felt as if they were in an oven. The oppressive heat was hard for them to bear. The heat didn't seem to come from the outside, but from inside their bodies. Ji Yuling's punch made everyone in Guangqing City feel as if they were being burned by fire. Everyone in the city was shocked. Ji Yuling did not show mercy. She was decisive and would not give her opponent any chance. This was Ji Yuling's principle. Duels were meant to be life or death. The earth-shattering golden sword shadow instantly collided with Ji Yuling's fire elemental fist. A muffled rumble broke out. The sound was not loud, but it shook the heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of dazzling golden sword shadows were shattered into streaks of flowing light that streaked across the sky, and were finally extinguished in the raging flames. High up in the sky, flames and sharpness were everywhere. The burst of strong light lit up the world. It was especially eye-catching under the night sky. Even 1,000 miles away, it could be seen clearly. Unparalleled strength chis collided, surged, and cancelled each other out. A great pressure swept out, enveloping the surrounding area. Alliance Lord Six Dao's attack was shattered by a single punch from Jiyu Ling. At this time, Jiyu Fei had already made his move to stabilize Guangqing's small world. Otherwise, the whole Guangqing small world would be destroyed if the two supreme experts fought. Alliance leader Six Ways was shocked. He did not expect his opponent to be so powerful. He is Alliance leader Six Ways. At this time, Grand Elder Yu Mu of Guangqing Immortal Sect suddenly exclaimed. What? In the City Lord's mansion, the higher-ups of Guangqing Immortal Sect were shocked. The person in the sky was the legendary Alliance leader Six Ways. Alliance leader Six Ways was personally dealing with a puny Guangqing Immortal Sect. This caused the higher-ups of Guangqing Immortal Sect to break out in cold sweat. If it wasn't for Jiyu Fei and his family, Guangqing Immortal Sect would have been annihilated by Alliance leader Six Ways. Alliance leader Six Ways. Jiyu Ling looked at the fella in front of him and his lips curled into a faint smile. Swish. At this moment, Alliance leader Six Ways suddenly disappeared into the void. However, in the next moment, a huge cauldron flew out from the City Lord's mansion and smashed into the void thousands of miles away. Boom. The void exploded, and a figure fell out of the void in a sorry state. Trying to escape. Seeing this, Gulling was instantly enraged. With a single teleportation, he appeared near Alliance Master Six Dao's. Without even thinking, he sent another punch at Alliance Master Six Dao's. Alliance Lord Six Dao's was blasted away. At this time, Alliance leader Six Ways was filled with regret. He shouldn't have been so rash and come here alone. Who would have thought that there were 3 supreme experts hiding here? Chapter 4658. The miserable Alliance Master Six Ways was filled with regret. He should not have trusted those 2 bastards, but who would have thought that 3 supremes would suddenly appear on the ancestral star of Buzhou? This was an extreme Dao supremacy, not some roadside weed that could be seen everywhere. Even the appearance of an extreme grade sovereign on the ancestral star of Buzhou would cause a commotion, not to mention 3 extreme grade sovereigns. Truth be told, Alliance Master Six Dao's could not sense Jiyu Fei's cultivation base at all. All he knew was that Jiyu Fei was also an extreme Dao utmost prime. Moreover, he was the strongest existence amongst the supremes. Otherwise, how could he not have sensed that fellow's cultivation base? Bam! A dull sound of impact could be heard. Alliance Master Six Ways was once again sent flying by Jiyu Ling's punch. His body shattered in the void and turned into a mist of blood. However, Alliance Master Six Ways immediately reassembled his body and turned into a dazzling sword radiance. He soared into the sky, intending to use the sword escape technique to escape. Ha! Jiyu Ling laughed. His body flashed, transforming into a streak of sword light as he chased after Alliance Master Six Dao's. What? Alliance Master Six Ways was truly shocked. He never expected his opponent to be a Sword Dao sovereign as well. Moreover, his Sword Dao cultivation was clearly above his own. This is bad. Alliance Master Six Ways knew that he would most likely die here today. At his level of cultivation, his premonitions were usually accurate and rarely wrong. Guangyuan City was hundreds of thousands of miles away from the entrance of Guangqing's small world. However, such a distance was nothing to Alliance Master Six Ways. With just a thought, he had already rushed to the entrance of Guangqing's small world. Whoosh! Alliance Master Six Ways did not hesitate and immediately rushed out of Guangqing's small world. Jiyu Ling naturally would not let him go so easily and chased after him. Hum! 2 sword lights of extreme Dao appeared on Buzhou ancestral star. 2 sword cries resounded across the 9 heavens, and at that very moment, all the sword cultivators on Buju Ancestral Star felt their natal swords vibrating as if they were summoned to rush out of their bodies. The instant the Extreme Dao Sword Venerable released his Sword Dao aura, it would produce the phenomenon of 10,000 swords greeting. All the swords uncontrollably flew towards the Extreme Dao Sword Venerable. The appearance of two extreme sword sovereigns on Buju Ancestral Star had brought great misfortune to the sword cultivators. Those with stronger cultivation base could barely control their natal swords, but those with weaker cultivation base had their swords flown away. How is this possible? All the sword cultivators on Bujo Ancestral Star were dumbfounded. Two extreme sword venerables had appeared on Bujo Ancestral Star at the same time? What was going on? That was an extreme sword venerable. Two of them had appeared at the same time. This was unprecedented in the cultivation history of Bujo Ancestral Star. There had never been two extreme sword venerables appearing at the same time in the entire human realm, let alone Bujo Ancestral Star. It's Alliance Master 6 Daos, someone exclaimed. Who's the other one? Almost all the bigwigs on Bujo Ancestral Star were alarmed by the appearance of an ancient existence. The two sword Dao auras that appeared on Bujo Ancestral Star were just too powerful. Jiu Ling was like a cat catching a mouse, unhurriedly chasing after Alliance Master 6 Daos. The Alliance Master was shocked, furious, and helpless at the same time. Her cultivation base was definitely above his. How could such an expert be unknown? However, Alliance Master 6 Daos could not think of anyone on Bujo Ancestral Star, or even the entire human realm, who had successfully broken through to the Extreme Dao realm, much less become an Extreme Sword Venerable. Jiu Ling was not only an Extreme Sword Venerable, but she also cultivated the Fire Dao. Alliance Master 6 Daos had fled from the eastern region to the western region, then from the western region to the northern region, and finally from the northern region to the southern region. As he fled, he had practically run through the entire Bujo Ancestral Star. Wherever he went, everyone who saw the scene was dumbfounded and their jaws dropped to the ground. It was the 6 Daos Alliance Master, who had been in the limelight for many years. But now, he was being chased by a woman? This was too ridiculous. Alliance Master 6 Daos was truly treacherous. Seeing that he couldn't get rid of Jiu Ling, he had lured her to the Golden Divine's ancestral ground. Has Alliance Master 6 Daos lost his mind? Isn't he afraid that the Golden Divines will come after him for something like this? That's a powerful race that once produced an extreme Dao sovereign. When the ancients who had been watching the chase saw Alliance Master 6 Daos heading for the Golden Divine's ancestral ground, they knew that a good show was about to unfold. I heard that the Golden Goddess has returned and is in seclusion to break through to the Extreme Dao sovereign realm. Someone had some connections with the Golden Divines and knew some inside information. Alliance Master 6 Daos wants to stop the goddess from breaking through to the Extreme Dao sovereign realm? Someone exclaimed. However, the Golden Divines had long since sealed themselves off from the outside world. The Golden Divine's ancestral ground was a restricted area on planet Bujo. It was a place that could be moved. Yes, the Golden Divines had a mobile ancestral ground. It was a golden sacred mountain with countless caverns on it. The Golden Divines lived in the caverns of the Golden Divine Mountain and used its metal elemental power to cultivate. It was precisely because of the existence of the Golden Divine Mountain that the Golden Clan had been able to survive for so long. Every generation produced experts, making them far stronger than the average faction on planet Bujo. On the entire Bujo ancestral planet, only the Ziyun clan could contend with the Golden Gods. At this time, the Gold Divine Race's sacred mountain was surrounded by layers of killing arrays. The Gold Divine Race's people had all left the sacred mountain. At the peak of the Golden Sacred Mountain, a figure was sitting cross-legged on a golden rock where the Golden Clan's progenitor had once sat. It was a beautiful woman with a head full of golden hair. She was the only person on the entire Golden Sacred Mountain. She was the Golden Goddess. She had refined the Great Path Golden Lotus she had obtained from the Chaos Immortal Mansion and successfully severed the Extreme Dao bloodline in her body. Today, she was finally going to take that step. However, right at that moment, two uninvited guests arrived outside her seclusion area. Alliance Master 6 Daos, what do you want? An old voice sounded, and a golden-haired old man slowly walked out of the mountain where the gold sacred mountain was located with the help of a walking stick. The old man had a face full of wrinkles, and his eyes were cloudy. He looked like he would collapse at any moment. However, Alliance Master Six Daos, who was about to rush straight to the golden sacred mountain, was shocked when he saw the old man. "How is this possible? How are you still alive?" Alliance Master Six Daos seemed to be quite shocked. He stopped and involuntarily took a few steps back. Jiyu Ling had already caught up. Chapter 46-59. The Golden Divine Clan was a race that had been passed down for eons on planet Buzhou's ancestral star, and they were even more ancient than the Ziyun clan. When the Golden Divine Clan's ancestor dominated the world, the Ziyun clan's supreme great ancestor was still playing in the mud somewhere. The Six Daos Alliance Master was also an extreme grade sovereign, and the Six Daos Alliance he founded had swept across the entire ancestral star of Buzhou, conquering 2/3 of its territory. In the history of the Buzhou ancestral planet, only the Golden Divine Clan and the Ziyun clan had once dominated the entire planet. But now, the Golden Divine Clan had gone into seclusion, the Ziyun clan had sealed their mountains, and the Six Ways Alliance was the sole power. Hence, the Six Ways Alliance Master was a little arrogant. "Alliance Master Six Daos, it's one thing for you to act like a tyrant in the outside world, but why have you come to disturb my Golden Clan? Are you getting carried away, or am I unable to hold my saber tightly?" The old man walked out from the mountain and stood before Alliance Master Six Daos. He tried his best to keep his turbid eyes open as he stared at Alliance Master Six Daos. This. Alliance Master Six Daos seemed to have been frightened by this old man, to the point where he could not even speak properly. "This little girl is amazing. She actually chased Alliance Master Six Daos until he wet his pants. The younger generation will surpass us in time." The old man's gaze fell upon Guline, who was standing behind Alliance Master Six Daos. "Old man, how about we join forces and kill this guy?" Guling laughed. She could already tell that this old man was incredible. His cultivation base had probably reached the peak of extreme grade. The old man looked old and clumsy, as if he could collapse at any time, but in reality, he was unfathomable. That's a good idea." The old man nodded. "Do you have any shame? You want to gang up on me?" Alliance Lord Six Daos felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't even a match for Jiyu Ling, let alone this old man. If the two of them were to join hands, there was no way he could survive. Catcher. He crushed a Dao talisman of the extreme Dao in his hand. Jiyu Ling's heart skipped a beat, but he did not make a move. The old man acted as if he didn't notice Alliance Master Six Ways' little trick. "Looking for help?" Guling laughed. She wanted to see what kind of helpers this guy could find. With his father around, even if all the extreme grade supremes of the mortal world came, it would be useless. Sometimes, numbers really didn't matter. No matter how many extreme grade supremes there were, they would definitely not be a match for an eternal grade supremacy. Not to mention Jiyu Fei, even existences like Tong Yu or Di Jotian, who were at the half-step eternal realm, could sweep through the entire human realm. "Do you dare to wait a moment?" Alliance Lord Six Daos knew that he could no longer escape. The two of them had locked onto him with their divine wills. He had no chance of escaping. Hearing this, the old man immediately laughed out loud. "Junior, you think too highly of yourself." The old man's hoarse voice traveled far away. "Humph. Old golden monster, don't flaunt your seniority in front of me. Your era has long passed." Alliance Lord Six Paths said disapprovingly. "Really?" The old man smiled, and the wrinkles on his face deepened. This was the mark of time. He clearly did not care much about his appearance. One should know that at the old man's cultivation level, it was only a matter of a thought for him to become young and handsome. "I'll wait for you for an hour, so that you can die in peace." Jiyu Ling was not afraid of this guy's tricks at all. Rumble, at this moment, the golden sacred mountain that was protected by countless killing arrays suddenly shook. A powerful aura erupted from the peak of the golden sacred mountain, from the figure sitting cross-legged on the golden rock. The sky above the mountain suddenly changed color, and a faint rumble of thunder came from the depths of the sky. Golden Sister succeeded in breaking through to the extreme grade. Jiyu Ling looked at the golden sacred mountain surrounded by killing arrays in shock. At this moment, the power of the great Tao rushed out from the golden sacred mountain, and a monstrous golden radiance erupted, illuminating the entire world in a golden color. At this moment, all the old antiques on ancestral Star Buzhou were alarmed. Many people came out of their secluded cultivation. Someone broke through to the extreme grade realm again? Everyone was inexplicably shocked. All of them immediately rushed towards the location of the gold sacred mountain. They all wanted to know who had taken that step. Soon, many powerful figures arrived at the mountain where the gold sacred mountain was located. However, when these people saw Jiyu Ling and the others, they all hid far away. What are those two doing here? Everyone was curious as to why the two had stopped fighting. Wasn't Alliance Lord Six Ways being chased around by the white-robed woman? Many people had witnessed Jiyu Ling's glory, and naturally saw Alliance Lord Six Ways' sorry state. The dignified Alliance Lord Six Ways had actually been chased around the world by a woman. How embarrassing. At this moment, everyone's attention was drawn to the eruption of activity on the golden sacred mountain. The entire sky darkened, and tribulation clouds gathered from all directions. Ha, our golden family will have another extreme grade sovereign, the old man shouted happily. Since the founding ancestor of the Golden Divine Clan, no one had been able to become an extreme grade sovereign. Over the years, this had become the Golden Divine Clan's weakness. Without an extreme grade sovereign, the Golden Divine Clan was in danger of being devoured. Now, as long as the Golden Goddess successfully passed the tribulation and became an extreme grade sovereign, the Golden Divine Clan would have a chance to prosper again. At this moment, in a valley hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Golden Sacred Mountain, a black-robed old man sitting cross-legged on a boulder suddenly opened his eyes. In the next moment, he waved his hand, and a beam of divine light fell into his hand. 6 paths, this guy, the black-robed old man stood up, and in the next moment, he instantly disappeared. Rumble, a terrifying heavenly tribulation was brewing. At the peak of the Golden Sacred Mountain, the divine sound of the Great Path faintly lingered around the Golden Goddess. The extreme-grade aura that erupted from her body made it difficult for countless experts watching from afar to breathe. This, Alliance Lord Six Ways felt extremely complicated when he saw this. If a new extreme-grade sovereign was born on Buzhou ancestral planet, the current situation would definitely be changed. If that happened, Alliance Lord Six Ways would lose his position as the Overlord. He would never hand over the territory that he had painstakingly conquered so easily. Someone is trying to break through to the extreme grade? Jiyu Fei, who was far away in Guangcheng's small world, suddenly frowned. He could sense the aura coming from outside Guangcheng's small world. Someone had completely released their extreme grade aura to trigger their own extreme grade sovereign's heavenly tribulation. Once this person successfully passed the tribulation and passed the test, an extreme-grade sovereign would be born on Buzhou ancestral planet. It would be a true extreme-grade sovereign. Swoosh. At this moment, a black figure tore through the void and stepped out. Damn it. Chapter 4660. Alliance Lord Six Ways wanted to draw ancient spirit to the ancestral grounds of the Gold Gods. Naturally, he had ill intentions. He wanted to incite a war between ancient spirit and the Gold Gods. However, Alliance leader Six Ways didn't know that Jiyu Ling and the Golden Goddess were old friends. At that moment, the Golden Goddess had refined the Great Tao Golden Lotus she had obtained from the Primal Chaos Immortal Mansion world. She had successfully severed the supreme bloodline inherited from the primogenitor. She used the Golden Lotus of the Tao to trigger the extreme Tao heavenly tribulation at the peak of the Golden Sacred Mountain. Terrifying tribulation clouds blanketed this part of the world, with blinding lightning bolts flashing from time to time and an aura of destruction sweeping out in all directions. Even the old-timers on Buzhou Ancestral Star were alarmed. I didn't expect them to be a step faster. In the ancestral lands of the Ziyun clan, an old woman looked in the direction of the ancestral lands of the Golden God clan. Her expression was rather complicated. At this moment, 2 powerful yet obscure presences emerged from an ancient hall in the depths of the Ziyun clan. The Ziyun siblings were currently in seclusion, attempting to break through to extreme grade. After the human world was transformed by Jiyu Fei with the power of the eternal demon eye, it was no longer the original human world. The entire human world had even greater potential than the ancestral realm. One had to know that Jiyu Fei was an eternal paragon, and he had used the eternal demonic eye to repair the heavenly Tao of the human realm. The entire human realm had been branded with an eternal mark. The current heavenly Tao of the human realm had already become extremely stable. Not to mention 1 or 2 people undergoing tribulation, even if more than a dozen experts were to break through to the extreme grade realm at the same time, the heavenly Tao of the human realm would be able to withstand it. At that moment, outside the sacred mountain of the golden divine race, the helper that Alliance Master Hexaways had invited finally arrived. However, when the black-robed man saw the old man from the golden divine race, he immediately cowered. The black-robed man couldn't wait to tear the void and escape. "Since you're already here, why are you walking so fast?" the old man from the golden race said. In the next moment, the entire void seemed as though it was about to freeze up. The entire void was locked up by him. "Old master, you," the man in black was shocked and furious. "All right, since everyone is here, let's begin." Jiyu Ling couldn't wait any longer. The black-robed man was also an extreme Dao sovereign. 6 Daos, what's going on? The black-robed man stared at Alliance Master 6 Paths, who had called him over. "Can't you see that I'm being chased by this little girl?" Alliance Lord 6 Daos said in a displeased tone. "Is there some kind of misunderstanding?" The black-clothed man looked at Jiyu Ling and said, "There's no misunderstanding. Die, or submit. Your choice." Jiyu Ling said indifferently. Alliance Master 6 Daos and the black-robed man were enraged. How could an extreme grade sovereign submit to someone else? "What? You don't want to submit? Then I can only send you on your way." After saying that, Jiyu Ling took a step forward and the aura emanating from her body instantly burst out. Next, she unleashed a punch at Alliance Master 6 Daos. Rumble. The entire void shook under Jiyu Ling's punch. Damn it. Alliance Lord 6 Paths could only grit his teeth and attack. However, Alliance Master 6 Paths was soon blasted away by Jiyu Ling. Both the old man from the Golden Divine clan and the black-robed man who had just arrived were stunned when they saw this. This 6 Paths Alliance Lord was way too weak. "Black Flame, what are you waiting for?" Alliance Master 6 Paths coughed out blood continuously from Jiyu Ling's attacks. "Little girl," the man in black made his move. He had no choice but to do so because he owed Alliance Master 6 Paths a huge favor. Thus, he had no choice but to join forces with Alliance Master 6 Paths. However, the old man from the Golden Divine clan had no intention of making a move. How is this possible? Alliance Master 6 Paths and the extreme grade sovereign called Black Flame were indescribably shocked. Even with the two of them joining forces, this little girl was still able to deal with them with ease. Jiyu Ling struck out with the fire elemental fist. A violent fist force erupted from her fist, causing the 2 extreme grade supremes to continuously retreat in a sorry state. Boom! Jiyu Ling punched out, unleashing a fire-type fist blast that burned off Alliance Master 6 Dao's long hair, leaving him bald. This. Black Flame wanted to laugh when he saw this, but he couldn't because Jiyu Ling's fist was already coming for him. Bam! A dull sound of impact rang out as Jiyu Ling's fist and Black Flame's fist collided. In the next moment, the sound of bones breaking rang out. Black Flame screamed in pain as he was sent flying by Jiyu Ling's fist. His entire right arm was bent in a strange manner, and the bones in his arm were broken into countless pieces. This was a great Dao injury, and it wasn't something that could be healed so easily. "You guys are too weak." Jiyu Ling glanced at the two of them with slight disdain. Alliance Master 6 Paths fell silent. Kill. Jiyu Ling couldn't care less. Since these guys weren't willing to submit, she would just kill them. There was nothing more to say. She was extremely ferocious. One punch after another, she only used 3 punches to blast Alliance Master 6 Paths into the void, turning him into a bloody mist. Swoosh! A beam of divine light shot out from Jiyu Ling's glabella. This beam of divine light directly slashed into the bloody mist, destroying a blurry figure. "You're so ruthless." A weak wave of will spread out from the bloody mist. At this moment, the black-robed man rushed back. He took out an extreme Dao treasure and collected the bloody mist. Boom! Endless black flames suddenly erupted from the black-robed man's body, instantly engulfing the world. Me. The old man from the Golden Clan was enraged when he saw this. He waved his hand, and endless five elements power erupted from his hand, freezing the void. The black flames burned the void to the point of distorting. Then, they directly devoured Ji Ling. However, in the next moment, the endless black flames retreated like the tide. Ji Ling opened her mouth and inhaled, and the endless black flames frantically gathered in her mouth. Even the old man from the Golden Divine Clan was shocked to see this scene. This little girl was far more powerful than he had imagined. The endless black flames were devoured completely by Ji Ling. However, Black Flame and Alliance Master Six Paths had disappeared. They had actually escaped. "You think you can escape?" Ji Ling smiled. She didn't give chase. The monk could run, but the temple couldn't. She would pay a visit to Six Paths Alliance when she had the time. There was no hurry. Golden Divine Clan, an extreme supreme. "Old man, you must be the rumored fallen progenitor of the Golden Divine Clan." Ji Ling looked at the old man and said with a faint smile. Since ancient times, the Golden Divine Clan had only produced one extreme supreme. That was the progenitor of the Golden Divine Clan. After that, the entire Golden Divine Clan never produced another extreme supreme. Chapter 4661. The news that Guline had chased away Supreme Black Flame and Alliance Master Six Paths spread out, causing the entire Bujo ancestral star to be in an uproar. How is this possible? Where did this supreme being come from? The immortal net on the ancestral planet of Bujo was bustling with activity. The mysterious heavenly palace had gradually built a huge network in the human realm and the heaven realm. It was called the immortal net. Countless cultivators could exchange information and share their experiences in cultivation. None of the cultivators on Buju Ancestral Star had seen Ji Ling. However, when someone posted the video of Ji Ling chasing after Alliance Master Six Daos on the Immortal Net, some cultivators on the Soaring Dragon Ancestral Planet jumped out. "Isn't that Ji Ling? Why did you go to Bujo Ancestral Star?" A saint-level Immortal Net user on the Soaring Dragon Ancestral Planet exclaimed. "What? That woman is Ji Ling?" No wonder. As soon as the news about a saint-level user came out, the Immortal Net immediately became lively, and those immortal friends who were lurking in the dark all showed up. It had to be said that the people of the mysterious Heavenly Palace were really smart. They had actually built a huge Immortal Net network that covered the human realm and the heaven realm. To be able to use the celestial path to create a communication network was truly a stroke of genius. Only those fellows from the mysterious Heavenly Palace could come up with such an idea to earn cultivation resources. After years of discovery, the celestial net had gradually been perfected. The mysterious Heavenly Palace had even installed countless heavenly eyes in the important cities of the human realm and the heaven realm. The heavens eye could play a very good role in surveillance, and the number of killings and robberies in the heavenly realm and the mortal realm was much less. With the help of the immortal net, the mysterious Divine Palace had earned a lot of cultivation resources. If Gulling appeared on Bujo Ancestral Star, then my idol boss Ji Fei might also be on Bujo Ancestral Star. Someone posted on the immortal net. That's possible. Someone said. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go meet our idol. Someone shouted. The communication on the immortal net was anonymous. Everyone could say what they wanted, and no one could trace anything. Whether it was in the human realm or the heaven realm, Ji Fei was extremely popular. Soon, the teleportation formations on Buju Ancestral Star lit up one after another. The cultivators of the other ancestral planets were all heading towards the Bujo Ancestral Planet. At this time, Ji Fei and Yang were still in the Guangqing small world, enjoying themselves with the people of the Guangqing Immortal Sect. The sect master of Guangqing Immortal Sect, Lu Shangqing, was promised by Jiyu Fei that he would help Guangqing Immortal Sect return to the Soaring Dragon Ancestral Star and reopen their sect. Everyone in the Guangqing Immortal Sect was naturally overjoyed. Who would want to stay in this small world for the rest of their lives? Although there was no need to worry about food and clothing here, it was impossible to become a true powerhouse. This was because this small world didn't have a complete heaven Dao. Even the most heaven-defying cultivators like Li Mengyao's two disciples, even if they had shocking talents, they could only reach the saint rank in this small world. It was impossible for him to improve further. However, the outside world was different. The outside world was a perfect world, where one could cultivate to the extreme Dao level, and even have a chance to break through to the eternal stratum. With the arrival of the Great Era, the Guangqing Immortal Sect did not wish to be absent. The next day, Jiyu Fei and Yang Er left the Guangqing Immortal Sect and appeared in the ancestral land of the Golden God Clan. When they arrived, the ancestor of the Golden God Clan, the Golden Old Monster, was tasting the Grand Mist tea that the Golden Old Monster had collected for countless years under a big tree with Jiyu Ling. This was a tea leaf plucked from a Grand Mist spiritual root, and it was very helpful for a cultivator's cultivation to improve. The Golden Old Monster did not have many of these Grand Mist tea leaves left, and he was reluctant to use them to make tea. It contains a trace of Grand Mist Qi, good stuff. After drinking the tea, Jiyu Ling felt all the pores on her body open up. It was very comfortable, and her whole body felt warm, as if she was soaking in warm water. "Dad, Mom, why are you here?" Jiyu Ling looked at her parents who suddenly appeared, and was not very surprised. "You are Jiyu Fei? Can you do me the honor of drinking some tea?" The Golden Old Monster looked at Jiyu Fei and said with a smile, "Sorry to bother you." With that, Jiyu Fei sat down with Yang Er. The Golden Old Monster took out 2 teacups and filled them up. "Supreme grade Grand Mist tea?" Jiyu Fei was a little surprised. He did not expect the Golden Old Monster to still have such an extremely ancient thing. At this moment, the peak of the gold sacred mountain where the Golden Goddess was, the entire mountain was enveloped by bolts of lightning. The destructive aura made everyone's hearts palpitate. The Golden Goddess had triggered her heavenly tribulation of the extreme path. Endless lightning bolts surged out from the clouds in the sky, blasting towards the figure sitting cross-legged on the peak of the gold sacred mountain. No matter how many lightning bolts struck, they could not harm the Golden Goddess at all. At this moment, the Golden Goddess had completely fused with the gold sacred mountain. She was using the power of the gold sacred mountain to resist the heavenly tribulation of the extreme path. Just as the Golden Goddess was undergoing her tribulation, a world-shaking aura erupted from the depths of the ancestral land of the Ziyun clan. Furthermore, it was not just 1, but 2. Very soon, the ancestral land of the Ziyun clan was enveloped by the clouds of tribulation. 2 heavenly tribulations of the extreme path had actually appeared on Buzhou ancestral planet. The entire cultivation world of the Buzhou ancestral planet was in an uproar after the news spread. 2 heavenly tribulations of the extreme path had erupted on a single ancestral planet. This was absolutely unprecedented. Something like this had never happened in the history of the human world. However, 2 heavenly tribulations of the extreme path had erupted on Buzhou ancestral planet today. This was practically a miracle. This was absolutely unimaginable in the past. Even Jiyu Fei was a little surprised, but he quickly understood. The current human world was different from the past. The heavenly path of the current human world was extremely powerful, and it even carried some characteristics of the eternal heavenly path. Therefore, the human world could withstand heavenly tribulations of the extreme path. In other words, there was no limit to the number of heavenly tribulations in the human world. Anyone who was confident that they could successfully undergo the tribulation could trigger their own heavenly tribulation of the extreme path. In the current human world, perhaps only the eternal heavenly tribulation could shake the heavenly path of the human world. After sensing the changes in the heavenly path of the human world, Jiyu Fei couldn't help but shake his head with a wry smile. The effect of using the eternal demon eye to mend the heavens seemed to be too powerful. The power of the heavenly path of the human world had exceeded his expectations. How is this possible? At this moment, Alliance Master Six Ways and Supreme Black Flame, who had fled back to the headquarters of the Six Ways Alliance, were dumbfounded. There were actually 3 people undergoing the heavenly tribulation of the extreme path on Bujo ancestral planet at the same time. If all 3 of them were to successfully undergo the heavenly tribulation, the structure of the cultivation forces on Bujo ancestral planet would be completely rewritten. Moreover, when Alliance Master Six Ways found out that the white-clothed woman who was chasing after him was Jiyu Ling, the only daughter of Jiyu Fei, he was completely dumbfounded. Oh no, she's actually Jiyu Ling. Chapter 4662. Guling actually appeared on Buju ancestral star, and some people guessed that Jiyu Fei must be on Buju ancestral star. That was the famous Jiyu Fei. He had leveled a land of danger, killed a supreme being, and destroyed a demon den. All of these shocking events were done by him. Moreover, not long ago, Jiyu Fei actually repaired the human realm's incomplete heavenly Dao and removed the heavenly punishment formation, so that the human realm and the heavenly realm were no longer forbidden areas for supreme beings. Whether it was the human realm or the heavenly realm, Jiyu Fei's limelight was absolutely unrivaled. When Union Master Six Ways found out that the person chasing him was actually Jiyu Fei's daughter, he was scared out of his wits. His first reaction was to pack up and run for his life. However, Jiyu Fei didn't care about Alliance Master Six Ways at all. Jiyu Fei and his family were guests in the Golden Gods. At that moment, the Golden Goddess had already survived the lightning tribulation. However, the power of the 5 elements gathered within the tribulation clouds. Endless 5-colored flames descended from the sky, enveloping the Golden Goddess. This was a fire tribulation. Furthermore, it was a fire tribulation of the 5 elements. Just a strand of the 5 elements' divine fire could burn a holy venerate to death in body and soul. Roar! The Golden Goddess roared. This divine flame was burning her from the outside, causing her flesh to split open. Even her bones were burning with 5-colored divine flames. Even her soul seemed to be on fire. It was definitely not an easy task to become a true extreme supremacy. The Golden Goddess used the power of the Golden Sacred Mountain to strengthen herself and struggled to hold on. Under the tempering of the 5 elements' divine fire, the Golden Goddess physique gradually underwent a transformation. An extreme aura erupted from her body. While the Golden Goddess was undergoing her tribulation, the Ziyun siblings were also undergoing their tribulation in the ancestral grounds of the Ziyun clan. The Ziyun siblings were a strange combination, 1 yin and 1 yang, 1 male and 1 female. Their cultivation methods could play a very good role in complementing each other. Once the Ziyun siblings joined forces, they were practically invincible below the quasi-supremes. They actually transcended the tribulation together. This was unbelievable to everyone. One had to know that it was rare for 2 people to undergo a heavenly tribulation at the same time. Furthermore, it was an extreme Dao heavenly tribulation. It was obvious that the might of the heavenly tribulation would be much greater and more dangerous than the heavenly tribulation of one person. Just the tribulation clouds alone covered an area of millions of miles. Endless lightning turned into a sea of lightning, and a terrifying aura of destruction spread out in all directions. In the ancestral grounds of the Ziyun clan, all the descendants trembled. No one could remain calm under the extreme heavenly tribulation of the Great Path. Jiyu Fei couldn't help but be surprised when he sensed the ripples of the heavenly tribulation from the Ziyun clan. Those 2 siblings were truly strange, even going through their tribulation together. All the cultivators who came to Buju ancestral star were dumbfounded. They were all here to see Jiyu Fei, but who would have thought that they would run into such a rare event? On the same homeworld, there were 3 people going through the heavenly tribulations at the same time, and they were all extreme path heavenly tribulations. How is this possible? Countless living beings on the ancestral star of Buju were terrified to the extreme. At this time, the Tianji immortal net was in an uproar. Even those people who had been lurking in the dark for hundreds of years had popped up. Everyone in the human realm was staring at Buju ancestral star. In the human realm, many people had obtained the Great Path Golden Lotus. They were all taking advantage of this rare opportunity to go into seclusion to break through to the extreme path realm. Ha ha! I, old tortoise, have finally succeeded. In the 9 heavens of Gu Fei's Chaos Immortal Mansion, a burst of laughter suddenly rang out and spread throughout the entire Chaos Immortal Mansion. At the same time, an aura of the extreme path erupted from the 9 heavens. That guy, in the Chaos Immortal Mansion, there were still many people who had not left. The news of Old Tortoise becoming an extreme path sovereign spread quickly. The entire Heaven Realm's monster race was in an uproar. After so many years, the monster race finally had another extreme path sovereign. However, Old Tortoise's enemies were in a different mood. Old Tortoise had many enemies. The Heavenly Monster Clan was still around, and no one knew where Yuan Jiyu was hiding. There were also those extreme path sovereigns from the primordial world and ancestral world. They were all formidable enemies of the human realm and heaven realm. Moreover, the enemies from Eternal World were even more terrifying. In Eternal World, there were supreme existences of the Eternal Realm. Not long after Old Tortoise achieved the extreme path, on the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle, in the land of immortals, endless power of the heavenly tribulation was being devoured. Myriad world Tao bodies, return. Following a roar, figures rushed out from all over the human realm. In a graveyard, a large tomb exploded, and a skeleton rushed out towards the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle. In the ancestral star of Kunlun, a black figure also rushed out from a dangerous place. People were rushing out from every corner of the mortal realm. Even in the starry sky, there were people rushing out. What's going on? Many people noticed this scene, and the Tianji immortal net was in an uproar again. Countless figures rushed towards the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle at the same time. Each of these figures had a strong or weak aura, and some of them were even dead spirits. These figures had one thing in common, and that was that they were all He Tian's Tao bodies. For countless years, He Tian had been reincarnating and leaving behind more Tao bodies. The countless figures had gathered into an army, and this shocked the people on the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle. Someone was actually attacking the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle. In the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle, the people of the Ji family immediately took action, and the divine army of the Ji family was gathering. However, before the divine army of the Ji family could attack, the countless figures that were rushing towards the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle exploded in the void, and turned into rays of divine light that rushed into the land of immortals. He Tian was summoning the myriad world Tao bodies. With the power of myriad world reincarnation, He Tian directly devoured the power of the extreme path heavenly tribulation, and was extremely powerful. The essence of the entire land of immortals was completely devoured by him. At this moment, He Tian's strength had reached an unimaginable level. This was someone who dared to devour even the heavenly tribulation. Boom! With a loud explosion, the entire land of immortals exploded, and a figure broke through the soil and rushed out. Today, I've reached the extreme path. He Tian's voice resounded throughout the entire ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle. Everyone on the ancestral star of Crepe Myrtle was extremely shocked. When Ji Changkong received the news, he was both surprised and overjoyed. The more He Tian succeeded in his tribulation, the more stable his position became. On the other hand, Empress Ji's supporters had long faces, and could not turn the tables. On the same day, a huge banquet was held in the ancestral ground of the Ji family to celebrate He Tian's successful breakthrough to the extreme path realm. The age of geniuses had arrived, and people kept breaking through their limits to become supremes. The Golden Goddess succeeded, and so did the Ziyun siblings. However, there were also people who failed. An incredible descendant of the primordial Zhao family was killed by the heavenly tribulation when he was trying to break through to the extreme path realm.